Chapter 1565. He was the city guard captain of Radiant City. He was also a Class 3 creation master Suquan. He understood better than the other city guard captains, who were not creation masters, the meaning of the totem mark on the creation master's crest. Any Class 4 creation master who accepted a disciple, they could add their own totem on the disciple's crest. But in the entire Radiance, only Her Majesty had a totem related to the moon. Oh my God! Could it be that I just said Her Majesty's disciple? Just now, in a fit of anger, he seemed to have said something very rude. Suquan shrunk his neck. But at the same time, as the city guard captain of Bronze Cauldron City, Suquan was responsible for the economic and industrial layout of the city. He had to go to the core area to see the situation. If he met the Moon Empress disciple, Suquan felt that he could communicate with the Moon Empress disciple. It was said that the crying child would get milk. If the lava land's fire element was used up, it would be irreversible. This change was really related to the Moon Empress disciple. The Moon Empress disciple had to think of a way out for Bronze Furnace City, right? Bronze Furnace City's overall revenue was tight. As the second lowest city in the Radiance sect, Bronze Furnace City had to build a mirror city in the Abyss world. It was really hard for Bronze Furnace City. The Class 6 Abyss Dimensional Rift had only opened for a few days. But for Ascending Dragon City, Raging Wave City, Cloud Pool City, Indigo Azure City and other big cities in the Abyss world, they had marked the boundaries of their cities. They had already started to transport large amounts of materials to the Abyss world. They were ready to build the city. Bronze Furnace City could also mark the boundaries. But Bronze Furnace City was so poor that they did not even have the materials ready. Things like building materials were considered economic resources. No matter how poor Bronze Furnace City was, they could tighten their belts and build a mirror city. They could always take them out. But even if they took out the materials, the Bronze Furnace Guard could not do it in a short period of time. They had to drive away, or clean up the Abyss demons in the marked areas. The most expensive thing in this world was always the Creation Master's resources. Bronze Furnace City was so poor that the Bronze Furnace Guard did not have many resources. There were not many Creation Masters invested in them. As the City Guard Captain, Suquan was a Class 3 Creation Master. Last night, he was still concocting the spiritual liquid. He was prepared to help his brothers increase their strength. If Bronze Cauldron City were to suffer another calamity, it could only be someone as important as the Moon Empress disciple. That was the only way to save Bronze Cauldron City. At this moment, Suquan saw three figures approaching from afar. One of them was a man and a woman with red hair. At a glance, these two people were humanoid phase. The black-clothed youth at the side looked to be only 17 or 18 years old. However, this youth was undoubtedly more like the Moon Empress disciple. The arrival of the Mother of Bloodbath and Shue Shua made the phase completely quiet down. The middle-aged woman walked to the Mother of Bloodbath and said with some grievance, "Those spirit chi professionals are very unreasonable and insist on barging in. If I say no, prepare to fight us." The Mother of Bloodbath did not say anything. Instead, he looked at Lin Yuan. At this moment, Suquan had already walked up to them. He was holding the Class 2 Creation Master crest that had the moon totem on it with both hands. He bent over and handed it back to Lin Yuan. "My lord, I am Bronze Cauldron City's City Guard Captain Suquan. I would like to ask you something since you rushed over from the Lava Land's central region. Did the anomaly in the Lava Land's central region cause the fire elemental energy to disappear?" Lin Yuan frowned slightly when he heard Suquan's words. He roughly understood why Suquan was so concerned about the fire elemental energy in the Lava Land. What exactly was going on? Lin Yuan, who was born in Redbud City, had clearly felt the changes in the environment. It affected the city's economy. Redbud City had been raining for many years. The plant phase in the surrounding Fey breeding bases required a lot of water. However, there was one year when the rain in Redbud City suddenly decreased. This caused the production of plant phase that required a lot of rain to be poor. The price correspondingly increased. At that time, Lin Yuan had just taken over the Fey store not long ago. Lin Yuan, who did not have any savings, caught up with the sudden increase in the price of plant phase. It was not a small problem for Lin Yuan and Chu Si's survival. After understanding Su Quan's concerns, Lin Yuan answered truthfully. The fire elemental energy in the lava field has indeed been depleted. In the future, it will be impossible to recover. Upon hearing that, Su Quan's face fell. Previously, because of the formation of the lava field, Bronze Furnace City had been completely destroyed. It was extremely difficult to transform an industry. Now, because of the disappearance of the lava field, the transformation of Bronze Cauldron City's industries would be painful. He wondered how many civilians there were in Bronze Cauldron City. Due to the sudden change in the environment and the disruption of the industrial chain, they could not afford to eat. Now that something like this had happened, it had to be reported. His Majesty Cicada Cry would definitely allocate resources. It was a small matter for him and the city lord to lose face. However, even if those ordinary people and spirit chi professionals received the relief funds, they would not be able to do so. The despair of having your property destroyed and your job lost. There was no way to erase it from her heart. Su Quan could foresee that it would take at least 100 years. Even Bronze Furnace City would not be able to walk out of the shadow of the lava field. In order to fulfill the conditions of establishing a foothold in the Abyss world, Bronze Furnace City had set up a base. All the funds had to be invested in the Abyss world, and the construction of the Mirror Image City, and the livelihood of the citizens in the city. There was no money to invest in Creation Master resources. The more Bronze Cauldron City developed, the more it would deteriorate. The more Su Quan thought about it, the sadder he felt. His eyes reddened. For the future of Bronze Cauldron City, Su Quan planned to have a good talk with the Moon Empress disciple. If the Moon Empress disciple did not care about this matter, he just patted his butt and left. As the city guard captain of Bronze Cauldron City, it was difficult for Su Quan to acknowledge this so-called disciple, even if this youth would become the leader of Radiance in the future. But Su Quan did not expect that before he could speak, the youth in front of him had already spoken. This time, the anomaly in the lava field outside Bronze Cauldron City. It's because my friend absorbed the fire element energy here. I know that this will have a huge impact on Bronze Cauldron City. I am prepared to do something for Bronze Cauldron City. You are the city guard captain of Bronze Cauldron City. You should know what kind of resources Bronze Cauldron City urgently needs. Upon hearing that, Su Quan took a deep look at Lin Yuan. No matter what, this youth was able to say such a thing. It meant that this youth was a responsible person. But even if this youth was the Moon Empress disciple, Su Quan still did not believe that the resources this youth gave, it could make up for Bronze Cauldron City's losses. Chapter 1566. Su Quan felt bad, so he told Lin Yuan directly. Because Bronze Furnace City is surrounded by a forest that produces metal resources. Among the 32 major cities of Radiance, it's not the best, but it's still average. But the formation of the lava lands makes it extremely difficult to mine the metal resources in Bronze Furnace City. The forest has also been burned to ashes. Back then, Bronze Furnace City took a long time to complete the industry transformation. We relied on planting fire-type spiritual materials and nurturing fire-type phase. There was only a slight improvement in the year before last. Your friend is a fae, so there's nothing wrong with him absorbing fire-type energy. But with the lava land's fire-type energy sucked dry, it affected the livelihoods of billions of people in Bronze Furnace City. If you have to say what Bronze Furnace City lacks, it's the same as other major cities. What it lacks are Creation Master resources. Even 1,000 high-quality bronze phase cannot compare to the loss of Copper Cauldron City. Su Quan could not estimate how much the disappearance of the lava lands would affect Bronze Furnace City. Su Quan had casually said 1,000 bronze high-quality phase. Other major cities would look for Creation Masters every year to create some bronze/epic phase. It was used to reward city guards for meritorious service. It was to increase the city guard strength. But with Bronze Furnace City's current financial reserves, they could not even get bronze/epic phase. Even if they had to get bronze/flawless phase, it was not a small amount of pressure to get 300 every year. With the opening of the Abyss world, the price of fire-type spiritual materials had plummeted. It had a huge impact on Bronze Furnace City. Bronze Furnace City's forces were already showing signs of moving out. Therefore, 1,000 bronze high-quality phase was already an unimaginable sum in Su Quan's heart. It was already an unimaginable amount of money. At this moment, Su Quan heard the young man opposite him say in an apologetic tone, 1,000 bronze/epic phase is not a problem. But I wonder if Bronze Furnace City has any specific requirements for these 1,000 bronze/epic phase? Su Quan was stunned when he heard Lin Yuan's words. He did not know what to say for a long time. Su Quan, who was afraid of poverty, heard Lin Yuan's promise. For a moment he could not believe his ears. Originally, Xue Shua and the Mother of Bloodbath were quite unconvinced by Su Quan. The fire elemental energy in this lava land was left by the Jade Gui. Now that it had been taken away, it was as good as getting back what belonged to them. Bronze Furnace City was built next to the lava field. It was tantamount to accepting the nurturing of the Jade Gui. But who would have thought that Jade Gui's body would perish in this place? It had such a huge impact on Bronze Cauldron City. From the start, it was his family that owed Bronze Cauldron City. At this moment, Su Quan had already regained his senses. She looked at Lin Yuan with an excited expression, and even changed the way she addressed him. He addressed Lin Yuan as young lord. Your Highness, is what you said true? Lin Yuan nodded in response. Bronze Cauldron City's standard fei. I remember it's a copper shield snapping turtle. You can divide these 1,000 bronze/epic feis. I can provide resources according to the fei you specify. The change in the lava land's environment will affect the people's livelihood the most. 1,000 bronze/epic feis won't solve the root of the problem. How about this? I'll introduce a few factions to Bronze Cauldron City in the near future that can drive the city's economic development. Then I'll provide Bronze Cauldron City with 300 bronze/epic feis every year, until Bronze Cauldron City's economic situation recovers. Now that Bronze Cauldron City has returned to its original state, the underground metal resources can continue to be mined. I can make a promise. I don't care about the metal resources in the lava land that were previously occupied by factions. In the future, no outside factions will be allowed to occupy Bronze Cauldron City's mining resources. I'll recycle all the mining resources regardless of species, quality. I'll provide cash flow to Bronze Cauldron City. Many people will need help at the start of the industrial transformation. I'll set up the Warm Sun Fund's next pilot project in Bronze Cauldron City. All individuals or factions whose industries have deteriorated due to the environmental changes in Bronze Cauldron City, help me count them. When the time comes, I'll let them choose whether they want Creation Master resources or Radiance dollars as compensation. Hearing Lin Yuan's decisive words, for a moment, Su Quan didn't know what to say. Su Quan's gaze toward Lin Yuan changed. His eyes were filled with reverence. Just how much boldness and sense of responsibility did the youth in front of her have? That was why he was willing to fork out so many resources. To make up for this anomaly that could be defined as a natural disaster or man-made disaster. Not only did the injection of such a large amount of resources not cause any losses to Bronze Cauldron City. Instead, it was a blessing in disguise. Those factions and individuals who went bankrupt due to the environmental changes and the disappearance of the lava land. Lin Yuan was compensating them with his own strength. It meant that Lin Yuan was shouldering the consequences of the changes alone. Su Quan looked at Lin Yuan with even more reverence. Su Quan didn't reject Lin Yuan's compensation. Su Quan couldn't reject it either. At the same time, Su Quan didn't intend to take more of Lin Yuan's resources. Su Quan said, Your Highness, with such a large amount of resources, Bronze Cauldron City doesn't suffer any losses. You don't need it at all in the future. Invest another 300 bronze/epic feis into Bronze Cauldron City every year. If Your Highness doesn't mind, I hope that Bronze Cauldron City can provide more resources in the future. To be able to trade for bronze/epic feis from Your Highness. Lin Yuan glanced at the excited and expectant Bronze Cauldron guards behind Su Quan. He said, Of course, Bronze Cauldron City used to be next to the lava land. There should be quite a number of abyss-dimensional rifts. I'm sure Bronze Cauldron City has collected a lot of law origin crystals. From now on, As long as Bronze Cauldron City can provide 5 Law Origin crystals, you will be able to get a bronze/epic Fae from me. Su Quan's eyes widened, and his body trembled when he heard Lin Yuan's words. Are you serious? If it's really possible, Bronze Cauldron City can provide 50,000 Law Origin crystals right now. I just need to get 8,000 bronze/epic Faes from His Young Highness. Anyone who told Su Quan about such a deal would be in disbelief. Su Quan wouldn't believe it. How could there be such a good thing in the world? But this was what the Moon Empress disciple Lin Yuan had said. Su Quan had no choice but to believe it. Su Quan boldly took out all the Law Origin crystals in Bronze Cauldron City's reserves. If he could really get 8,000 bronze/epic Faes, the Bronze Cauldron guards could easily double their original numbers. Chapter 1567. The overall strength of Bronze Cauldron City had increased, which meant that its combat power had increased. Under such circumstances, Su Quan was confident. Within 10 years, Bronze Cauldron City would have to go through the pain of transformation. It had once again become a mid-level city of the Radiance sect. Restore the glory of the past. Hearing Su Quan's words, Lin Yuan shook his head. Upon seeing Lin Yuan shake his head, Su Quan immediately felt disappointed. He thought to himself, he was too greedy. The young lord said that he would allow Bronze Cauldron City to exchange 5 Law Origin crystals for a bronze/epic Fae. Perhaps it was just the young prince's preferential treatment for Copper Cauldron City. Or perhaps it was a form of compensation. 8,000 bronze/epic Faes. This was a huge project that required 100 Class 4 creation masters to work together to complete. Just as Su Quan was regretting his greed, a voice suddenly rang out. Lin Yuan said, if Bronze Cauldron City can fork out 50,000 Law Origin crystals, we'll follow our previous agreement. I will prepare 10,000 bronze/epic Faes for Bronze Furnace City, but this transaction cycle will be very long. If Bronze Furnace City decides to trade, I can provide 500 bronze/epic Faes for Bronze Furnace every month. The entire transaction will last for 20 months. But the premise of this deal is that I have to get my hands on 50,000 Law Origin crystals from Copper Cauldron City first. Upon hearing that, Su Quan was overjoyed. He didn't expect that the deal he mentioned out of greed would not only succeed. Moreover, Lin Yuan still insisted on the price he had previously given. Provide Bronze Furnace City with 500 bronze/epic Faes every month. Such a large number of creation master resources were poured into Bronze Furnace City. 500 bronze/epic Faes happened to be the Bronze Furnace Guard's limit. Great sorrow and great joy made Su Quan, the captain of the Bronze Furnace Guard. For a moment he did not know what to say. After a long time, he thanked Lin Yuan and said, Thank you. Your Highness, give me an hour. I can prepare 50,000 Law Origin crystals for you. When Lin Yuan heard Su Quan's words, his eyes lit up. When Lin Yuan had traded with the Indigo Azure Guard and the Stormy Wave Guard, Lin Yuan's expression had changed. He was using the identity of the Lord of Sky City. Regardless of whether it was the City Guard captain of Stormy Wave City or Indigo Azure City, trading under such circumstances would be extremely difficult. No matter how much he trusted him, there was no way he would hand over tens of thousands of Law Origin crystals to him in advance. But now, Lin Yuan was using his identity as the Moon Empress disciple to make a deal with the Copper Furnace Guard captain, Su Quan. Lin Yuan could make such a request. Su Quan could also give them peace of mind. Lin Yuan was now in front of the Radiance 100 sequence. He just had to wait for Genius and Chime's quality to reach Fantasy V, and their bloodlines to continue transforming. Therefore, during this period of time, Lin Yuan could prepare bronze/epic Faes for Bronze Furnace City. First, take out a portion of these spiritual items. Alright, then I'll have to trouble you. Prepare the materials for Bronze Cauldron City after you give me the list. No matter what kind of resources it is, they can be prepared within 3 days. Lin Yuan's transaction with Bronze Cauldron City was equivalent to revealing his true strength. In the past, he would definitely not have been willing to do such a thing. But now he had an excellent cover. It was none other than Diwanmi. He now had a Class 5 Creation Master. Even if he took out more Creation Master resources, There was nothing to be surprised about. Lin Yuan had personally seen his master, the Moon Empress, concoct the spirit fluid for 4 hours. Then, he divided the spiritual liquid that he had concocted in the past 4 hours into 100 portions. They were fed to 100 bronze phase of the same species. Among the 100 bronze phase of the same species, 23 of them had reached flawless. 75 of them had reached the epic grade. 2 of them had reached legend. His master, the Moon Empress, had such a speed of enhancing phase. She was basically at the peak of the origin world. If he really had to calculate, Lin Yuan did not rely on spirit chi crystals. It was even faster than Lin Yuan's current speed. However, when the soul thought whale fused with the willpower rune that it had just comprehended, Morbius would reach gold. Lin Yuan's speed of increasing the quality of bronze phase would surpass the Moon Empress. Di Wanmi had just become a Class 5 creation master. He was definitely not comparable to the Moon Empress. However, as a tool, he could concoct hundreds or thousands of bronze/epic phase. It was not a very surprising thing. However, Lin Yuan could not possibly use the Class 5 creation master resources that he had obtained with great difficulty to enhance the phase quality. Lin Yuan could handle these things by himself. Lin Yuan had set Di Wanmi's work goal as the forging of artifacts, as well as helping the 100 Questions Beast Army raise the levels of those walnuts. It quickly rose to diamond rank. Such an ability was something he was still lacking at the moment. It could be said that Red Thorn had used the tongue of relinquish to control Di Wanmi. Lin Yuan no longer had any shortcomings in terms of creation master abilities. After obtaining 50,000 Law's origin crystals from Su Quan, the sky had already darkened completely. He was ready to rush to the Radiant Moon Palace to have dinner with his master, the Moon Empress. The situation in the lava land involved the livelihood of a large city in the Radiance sect. Lin Yuan was prepared to inform his master, the Moon Empress. On Lin Yuan's way to the Radiant Moon Palace, Su Quan was already in the office of the city guard captain. He started to write a document about the changes in the lava lands. The anomaly in the lava field was originally a bad thing. However, Lin Yuan's appearance had turned the land of lava's mutation into a good thing. It also allowed the lava land to continue nurturing plant phase and excavating ores. Lin Yuan's promise could be said to be in Su Quan's heart. It was like a protective umbrella. After that, even if a top faction came to Bronze Furnace City, they wanted to invest in Bronze Furnace City's ores. Su Quan could directly use Lin Yuan's name. He no longer had to reject the top faction's request and cause the top faction to withdraw their funds from Bronze Furnace City. He could then be the scapegoat. Lin Yuan also promised to bring in a few top factions for Bronze Furnace City. It would drive the economic development of Bronze Furnace City. This was what Su Quan cared about the most. However, he did not know which faction Lin Yuan would bring to Bronze Furnace City. The anomaly in the lava land definitely had to be reported to His Majesty Cicada Cry. Therefore, Su Quan reported everything that had happened after he met Lin Yuan. It was all written in detail in this report. Although it was Su Quan's first time seeing the Moon Empress disciple Lin Yuan, in Su Quan's heart, Lin Yuan was already worthy of being a Radiance envoy. If such a responsible young man could become a Radiance envoy of the Radiance sect, to Hui Yao, this could be said to be a blessing. On the way back, Xue Shua said to Lin Yuan apologetically, "Lin Yuan, I have caused trouble for you. I will return to the Heaven-Blessed Mansion and take some resources from there to make up for the losses in the lava land." Chapter 1568. Xue Shua had now become Lin Yuan's protector. Xue Shua was the Heaven-Blessed Mansion's mansion master, so it was not appropriate for him to address Lin Yuan as Lord. However, Xue Shua could not put on the airs of a senior in front of Lin Yuan. This was because Lin Yuan was Blood God's benefactor. In the end, Xue Shua could only separate from the mother of Bloodbath and talk to Lin Yuan. However, Lin Yuan treated Xue Shua as a senior. Xue Shua only heard Lin Yuan say, "Uncle Blood, I've made up for Bronze Cauldron City's losses. I'll move the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's headquarters from the royal capital to Bronze Cauldron City. Uncle Blood doesn't need to compensate Bronze Cauldron City anymore." Of course, even if Uncle Blood were to give it to me, I wouldn't want it. Xue Shuo was dumbfounded by Lin Yuan's words. This made Xue Shuo realize how good the young man in front of him was to his people. It was no wonder that Xiao Qing had developed such feelings for Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan's decision to move the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce out of the royal capital was not a sudden decision. The royal capital might be the place with the highest spending power in Radiance. However, the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce wanted to divide enough territory in the abyss. Therefore, he had to go to a big city to develop. There were many things waiting to be done in Bronze Furnace City. The listening Heron Chamber of Commerce, which specialized in luxury goods, moved to Bronze Furnace City. Bronze Cauldron City would definitely welcome them. The current listening Heron Chamber of Commerce was no longer a small chamber of commerce that could not even be considered a rising force in the past. Ever since the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce publicly announced that it had an emperor-class powerhouse, the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's reputation had surpassed that of the veteran factions. They were on par with the top forces. The listening Heron Chamber of Commerce would definitely be in the Radiance Sect's top faction rankings next year. Such a listening Heron Chamber of Commerce was enough to drive the industry and people of Bronze Cauldron City. Once the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce had taken root in Bronze Furnace City, it could also be like the Gao family in Wind Mist City. It became a pillar industry of the city. The mother of Bloodbath and her family had brought disaster to Bronze Furnace City twice. He was helping the mother of Bloodbath compensate Bronze Furnace City. At the same time, this compensation was a win-win situation for Lin Yuan. Xue Shuo and the mother of Bloodbath sent Lin Yuan to the foot of the Leaning Moon Mountain. He prepared to meet up with Lan Lian and Bai Feng. Tonight, the father and daughter, the mother of Bloodbath and Xue Shuo, reunited after a long time. Destined to confide in each other, the Radiant Moon Palace was Lin Yuan's home. Therefore, he didn't hold back and used the ethereal jellyfish's node teleportation ability. They were teleported to the inner palace of the Radiant Moon Palace. At that moment, Lin Yuan happened to see his master, the Moon Empress. He was peeling the lotus seeds with his hands. There were a few lotus flowers in the lotus pond that were trembling and withered. Clearly, this lotus head was cut from the lotus pond. The lotus flowers in the lotus pond in the inner palace of the Radiant Moon Palace had already developed consciousness. Lin Yuan felt that these lotus flowers should hate him to death. Every time he came here, these lotuses would suffer a calamity. When the Moon Empress saw Lin Yuan, she placed the lotus pod on the jade table. He said to Lin Yuan with a proud expression, "Little Yuan, during the time I was in seclusion, these two major things you've done are enough to be written in the history of the Radiance era. Even if I'm a Class 5 creation master, I'm still very important to the entire Radiance. I won't be a match for these tens of thousands of low-class creation masters." The Moon Empress walked in front of Lin Yuan and reached out to help him adjust his collar. He then said, "Little Yuan, Master is awake. From now on, you can do whatever you want to do. No matter how big the matter is, Master can handle it." After hearing the Moon Empress words, Lin Yuan was slightly startled. Lin Yuan always knew that his master was very proud. However, his master was never conceited. To be able to say such words, it meant that the Moon Empress was very confident. Lin Yuan immediately said with a smile, "Congratulations on Master's breakthrough in seclusion." At that moment, Mystic Moon walked in from outside the palace. She brought along a spirit attendant and placed the dishes on the jade table. "Young lord, the Moon Empress seclusion this time isn't as simple as just a breakthrough." Mystic Moon had always wanted to tell Lin Yuan about the Moon Empress lifespan. Because of the longevity rat, the Moon Empress crisis had been resolved. Even if she said it, Lin Yuan didn't need to worry about the Moon Empress. But in the end, Mystic Moon didn't say it to Lin Yuan, because Mystic Moon knew that if she really told Lin Yuan about this, in the end, the Moon Empress would definitely be angry with her. Furthermore, Lin Yuan didn't need her to encourage him. During this Radiance 100 sequence selection, the Freedom Federation's envoys would definitely cause trouble. If the Freedom Federation had truly arranged a friendly match for them, in the end, it still had to be Lin Yuan, His Holiness disciple. As a Radiance 100 sequence member, he had to go against the Freedom Federation. This battle that the Freedom Federation had meticulously planned for a long time was enough to motivate Lin Yuan. The Moon Empress scooped a bowl of jujube cheese for Lin Yuan. "Little Yuan, the entire world is going to be in chaos. As far as I know." One of the 8 clans of the Ocean Empire, the Imperial Mermaid Clan, has already reached an agreement with the Freedom Federation. The Radiance sect is destined to fight the Freedom Federation after the next Myriad Nations Conference. Therefore, in this conference triggered by the Huihai Treaty, the Imperial Mermaids and Mermaids Clan must become history. When the Moon Empress spoke, she was smiling at Lin Yuan. But in his eyes, there was a shocking killing intent. When the Moon Empress was in seclusion, she did not sense anything from the outside world. He was fully focused on activating his fate chart to fight against the heavens. He learned from Mystic Moon that Lin Yuan was outside Stormy Wave City. He was almost killed by the Imperial Mermaids and Mermaids. The Moon Empress had already decided to massacre the entire Imperial Mermaids and Mermaids race. The original 8 clans of the Ocean Empire would be reduced to the 7 clans of the Ocean Empire. Firstly, it was because of the Moon Empress' lingering fear. Secondly, the Moon Empress wanted to express her attitude. Lin Yuan is the disciple of the Moon Empress. No one in this world can be touched. People die when they move. When a faction moves, a faction is destroyed. The current Moon Empress character had completely changed from 10 years ago, untamed and sharp. But the softness in her heart was still tied to Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan did not expect that his master, the Moon Empress, would say such things to him. Only in the Imperial Court Conference could such a decision be discussed. Hearing the Moon Empress' words, Lin Yuan felt a sense of urgency. If this great world was really going to enter a state of war, then his Sky City was not strong enough. Even the floating island whale had not ascended to the sky. After eating, Lin Yuan did not leave the Radiant Moon Palace that night. Instead, he slept in his own pavilion in the Radiant Moon Palace. The next day, as soon as he opened his eyes, Lin Yuan received the good news from the audio tape. "Lin Yuan, Chimey only needs to absorb a wisp of deviant flame energy to raise its quality to Fantasy V. Lin Yuan originally wanted to raise the Thought Soul Whale to Fantasy Breed today. Then he would raise Morbius Grade. He did not expect Chimey to bring him such a surprise. Genius could have advanced to Fantasy V, but in order to wait for Chimey, it had delayed the advancement." Chapter 1569. Lin Yuan planned to return to the Return from Faraway Manor. He planned to let Genius and Chimey evolve into Fantasy V in the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone. Lin Yuan released Genius and Chimey from the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone. Genius and Chimey might be Diamond X/Fantasy 4 phase now, but they were still Diamond X/Fantasy 4 phase. However, when facing Lin Yuan, Genius and Chimey would be like before. One of them would lie in Lin Yuan's embrace. The other would jump onto Lin Yuan's ear. Of course, this was also thanks to Genius and Chimey. Even with the increase in strength, their bodies didn't grow bigger. Chimey said to Lin Yuan with a crisp voice, "Lin Yuan, after Chimey evolves into Fantasy V, are you going to transform into a human form and hold a concert soon?" Chimey stayed on the Phoenix perching parasol tree all day. It was either increasing its strength or live streaming. It was raising funds for the Warm Sun Fund. However, Genius's current knowledge reserves were no different from a Pinnacle Class 4 creation master. Upon hearing Chimey's words, Genius replied, "Chimey, you have to wait until you transform into a myth breed and reach Myth 2. Only then can you transform into a human form and hold a concert." Genius and Chimey were improving their strength very quickly. Lin Yuan sighed and felt that he was truly a failure as a contractor. He was only a B-rank Spirit Chi professional now. He had to wait until his Spirit Chi professional rank reached A rank. Then, Chimey could evolve into a myth breed. Fortunately, Morbius was about to evolve from silver to gold. Once Morbius evolved to gold, Lin Yuan's Spirit Chi professional rank would increase along with his enhanced phase. There would be a qualitative leap. Genius and Chimey's bloodline strength was already a pleasant surprise for Lin Yuan. Another bloodline transformation. Lin Yuan was unable to predict which path Genius and Chimey were going to take. Chimey originally had the opportunity to awaken the Luan phoenix species bloodline. However, Chimey used its bloodline to swallow a phoenix. It devoured the Luan phoenix species bloodline. It opened up another path, and continued to advance on the path of the sonic type. If genius abilities were all developed in the spiritual energy aspect, that wasn't entirely true. Genius was more like a smart cat's commander. The 100 Questions beasts were a race that could replace creation masters. Lin Yuan hoped that genius would break through with its bloodline. It would be able to advance on the path of a creation master. If he was smart, he would be able to reach the standard of a Class 5 creation master. Then Lin Yuan would have 2 Class 5 creation masters under him. He changed his clothes. Lin Yuan came out of the pavilion and headed for the inner palace. He was prepared to have breakfast with his master and the Moon Empress. When he arrived at the inner palace, he found that his master, the Moon Empress, was actually wearing the moonlight crown robe. The Moon Empress saw Lin Yuan and smiled. "Little Yuan, I'm going to attend the Imperial Court Assembly later. I'll be leaving first." While speaking, the Moon Empress had already scooped a bowl of bamboo shoot shark marrow soup for him. This bowl of soup contained surging water elements and blood energy. Lin Yuan sensed the aura. He realized that the aura was not much different from the aura on Shark Mang. Lin Yuan thought to himself. His master, the Moon Empress, had made this bowl of green bamboo shoot shark marrow soup. Could the mermaid marrow be from the Imperial Mermaids and Mermaids clan of the 8 great clans of the Sea Emperor? Lin Yuan could sense his master, the Moon Empress. He had a strong killing intent towards the Imperial Mermaid clan. Taking advantage of the fact that his master had yet to move, Lin Yuan felt that everything that had happened during this period of time had to be done. I should talk to my master, the Moon Empress. Yesterday, the Moon Empress had said that the entire origin world would be in turmoil. Lin Yuan planned to tell her about the results of the Celestial Body Council. Lin Yuan had never mentioned the Celestial Body Council to the Moon Empress. However, as Wen Yu's master, Mystic Moon knew that Wen Yu's sacred source life form was from the Celestial Body Council. Mystic Moon told the Moon Empress about the Celestial Body Council. The Moon Empress felt that the Celestial Body Council was rather extraordinary. However, she did not feel that the Celestial Body Council was very useful. From the Moon Empress' point of view, the people that the Celestial Body Council had gathered, they were already in a desperate situation. Firstly, it was not easy to help such people. Secondly, even if she helped them, it would be very difficult to change their fates. Unless these people were all on the same continent. If they could gather together, separated by continents, no matter how powerful they were, it would be very difficult to reach out that far. But now, the Moon Empress was stunned by the results of the Celestial Body Council. Master, there are currently 2 Federation envoys in the Celestial Body Council. One of them is Dark Envoy Su Iran from the 7 Dark States. The other is Azure Envoy Yin Lin from the Azure Federation. The remaining 2 also have the potential to become Federation envoys. It's just that I can't guarantee how far they can go. Lin Yuan was naturally referring to Tali and Bu Pe. The Moon Empress and Mystic Moon heard Lin Yuan's words. They were speechless for a long time. The Moon Empress and Mystic Moon could not help but feel puzzled. The Celestial Body Council was more strategic than practical. How did Lin Yuan use it? He actually used it in this small Celestial Body Council. He recruited 2 Federation envoys. Dark Envoy Su Iran from the 7 Dark States. She represented the hope of the Dark Continent. With Su Iran, when Lin Yuan had designs on the Dark Continent, it was completely justifiable. The Azure Federation and the Radiance Federation were both one of the 3 major federations. Yin Lin was a genius among the younger generation of the Azure Federation, who had awakened 2 beast patterns. It was rumored that Yin Lin was from the Azure Cloud Leopard family. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and awakened the beast mark. Could it be because of Lin Yuan? It was said that Yin Lin had volunteered to go to the Radiance Federation. Thinking about it, Yin Lin was very likely to come for Lin Yuan. After understanding this, the Moon Empress and Mystic Moon looked at each other. They both thought that they understood Lin Yuan very well. However, Lin Yuan was already in a place that they could not see. His strength had developed beyond their imagination. Like Diwanmi, Night Leaning Moon needed to give an explanation to the creation masters, who had been persecuted by the whale ocean trade. Therefore she killed Diwanmi. Night Leaning Moon could not do anything to Diwanmi's corpse. However, Lin Yuan could use his own method to resurrect Diwanmi. He even allowed Diwanmi to retain his Class 5 Creation Master abilities and become a servant. These were all things that the Moon Empress did not expect. In her heart, she had previously thought that no matter what Lin Yuan did, she would be able to put up a barrier behind Lin Yuan. Apart from that, the Moon Empress also had a trace of thought. She wanted to see her disciple Lin Yuan. How far could he go in the future? The Moon Empress asked herself. When she was 18 or 19 years old, there was no way to compare with the current Lin Yuan. Moreover, Lin Yuan was truly terrifying. It was not that Lin Yuan had such strength when he was 18 or 19 years old. It was that Lin Yuan had done it in less than a year. Starting from zero, he had increased his strength to such a level. What kind of amazing talent was this? At that moment, the Moon Empress heard Lin Yuan continue to speak. Master, I have plans to unify the shock pattern continent. Chapter 1570. Hearing Lin Yuan's words, Mystic Moon almost coughed out the soup in his mouth. However, Lin Yuan had Diwanmi, a Class 5 Creation Master. It wasn't impossible for Lin Yuan to unify the Agaon continent. The Moon Empress pondered for a moment and said, there is an agreement in the 10,000 States Convention. That is, the official power of a federation cannot be used in another continent. This agreement was made by all the federations. Therefore, little Yuan, you can only rely on yourself in the Agaon continent. Mystic Moon heard the Moon Empress words. He felt that the Moon Empress words were obviously warning Lin Yuan. But no matter how he listened, there was a kind of the feeling that the Agaon continent should be my disciple. At this moment, the Moon Empress felt proud and a little disappointed. She clearly didn't teach Lin Yuan much. Lin Yuan had already grown to be so outstanding. This made the Moon Empress feel less of a sense of accomplishment. But there was a sense of pride. This pride for Lin Yuan. It made the Moon Empress happier than the Moon Empress breaking through. Finally, the Moon Empress said softly to Lin Yuan, little Yuan, looking at you, Master suddenly has a feeling that I can't refuse to be old. This world belongs to you young people. Lin Yuan heard this and shook his head. Master is not old. Moreover, with the lifespan rat, Master can live forever. You will always be young. Hearing Lin Yuan's words, the Moon Empress couldn't help but stretch out her hand. She gently caressed Lin Yuan's cheek. A warm smile appeared on her face. Seeing that it was about time, the Moon Empress prepared to leave for the Imperial Court. To attend the Imperial Court meeting. Before leaving, the Moon Empress' expression suddenly turned cold. She said to Lin Yuan, little Yuan, the Radiance 100 sequence test this time. If the Freedom Federation's people kill our Radiance's people, no matter what your opponent's identity is, you can still get rid of them in the competition. Lin Yuan heard this and nodded. He said seriously, Master, I will. The conversation between the Moon Empress and Lin Yuan made Mystic Moon break out in cold sweat. But the Moon Empress was still like this. It made Mystic Moon feel more familiar. This was because the Moon Empress had completely returned to how she was 10 years ago. After breakfast, Lin Yuan went down the Leaning Moon Mountain, back at the return from faraway manor. As soon as he returned to the main residence, he saw an aquatic rhinoceros leather sofa. They were Xue Shua, Lan Lian and Bai Feng. Wen Yu was steeping 3 treasures tea at the side, serving the 3 of them. Upon seeing Lin Yuan's return, Xue Shua hurriedly stood up and said, Your Highness, my 2 friends would like to trouble Your Highness for a few days. During the beginning of the Radiance 100 sequence, protect the young lord's safety. Xue Shua did not know how to address Lin Yuan. In the end, she chose to call him young lord. Upon hearing how Xue Shua addressed him, Lin Yuan hurriedly replied, That's right. Uncle Blood, you are Blood Qing's father. He's also my elder. Just call me little Yuan will do. There are still quite a few empty guest rooms in the main residence. You are naturally welcome to stay here. White Phoenix and Blue Lotus rushed to Lin Yuan's side excitedly. Although he had obtained an accurate answer from Xue Shua and the mother of Bloodbath last night, He still couldn't believe it. But now, he still could not help but say to Lin Yuan, "Little benefactor, can Sister Yu Gui really be resurrected?" Upon seeing Lin Yuan nod, Bai Feng and Lan Lian received an affirmative answer. They were so excited that they could not help but laugh out loud. Lan Lian, who was laughing, could not help but crush the tomato in her hand. The collapsed ground was everywhere. No matter how one looked at it, it was somewhat comical. However, Lin Yuan knew that these spirits of heaven's blessings were genuine. The Heaven's Blessed Dojo should be the same as the Radiance Federation. They were all a warm presence. Shueshua looked at the laughing blue lotus and white phoenix. He could not help but hold his forehead with his hand. He had completely forgotten that when he first learned that Yu Gui could be resurrected. Compared to blue lotus and white phoenix, he was much more miserable. His tears could fill a can. Shueshua said to Lin Yuan, "Little Yuan, I have already informed the Heaven's Blessed Dojo's Grand Hall Master Ziqing. When the time comes, Big Sister Ziqing will send over a silk handkerchief that Yu Gui has always used." This silk handkerchief was used by Big Sister Ziqing with the soul congregation technique. She gathered the souls of almost all the inanimate objects in the entire lava land. When the time comes, I hope that Fae of yours. Let's see if we can find a bit of Yu Gui's remnant soul in this silk handkerchief. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan nodded and said, "Uncle Shui, this is very easy. My Fae's grade will be promoted very soon. After the promotion, its strength will increase. No matter how many remnant souls there are, it will be quickly filtered." Shueshua thought of the phone call last night. When he told Big Sister Ziqing about the news, Big Sister Ziqing actually lost control and cried for an entire hour on the other end of the phone. Was this still the calm Big Sister Ziqing? Finally, Big Sister Ziqing said she would immediately bring Yu Gui's silk handkerchief to the Radiance Federation. Now Shueshua had found his daughter. His wife was about to be resurrected. There was hope everywhere in life. It was no longer like before, living only to take revenge. But in Shueshua's heart, the hatred for the Tower Cannon did not disappear at all. When Big Sister Ziqing came, the Tower Cannon would come to the Radiance Federation. They were destined to stay in the Radiance Federation. When you brought Shueshua, White Phoenix, and Blue Lotus to arrange rooms. After Lin Yuan returned to his room, he entered the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone. He was prepared to increase his strength one last time, before the Radiance 100 sequence. Looking at Genius and Chimey, Lin Yuan pondered for a while. In the end, he decided to evolve the Remembrance Soul Whale into a fantasy breed first. Then, he would increase the grade of the Remembrance Soul Whale. He would let Morbius evolve to gold first. Even if it evolved to gold, Morbius would not wake up. But after evolving to gold, Morbius' exclusive skill, the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone, would be enhanced. The area of the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone would increase, and the Spirit Chi concentration would also increase. Genius and Chimey's bloodline metamorphosis might not be as dangerous as before. The Spirit Chi concentration would increase. In the face of unexpected events, it would more or less be of some help. Therefore, Lin Yuan summoned the Remembrance Soul Whale, and the willpower rune related to the soul that he had comprehended. Lin Yuan said softly to the Remembrance Soul Whale, "Remembrance Soul Whale, you are a legendary Fae. In the previous legends, I have never heard of a Remembrance Soul Whale comprehending a willpower rune. Remembrance Soul Whale, you have fused with the willpower rune, which is equivalent to a new legend. Go, Remembrance Soul Whale. Welcome this willpower rune, and evolve into a fantasy breed." When the Remembrance Soul Whale heard Lin Yuan's words, it let out a clear cry. It collided with the willpower rune related to the soul. Immediately after, on the Remembrance Soul Whale's body, soul fluctuations were like water ripples that spread out. Soul power gathered on the sharp horn, on the Remembrance Soul Whale's head. Soon, this sharp horn was visible to Lin Yuan's naked eye. There was an earth-shattering change. Chapter 1571. The Spirit Thought Whale's horn from before was just a smooth spike-shaped object. Upon closer inspection, one could see faint markings on the horns. However, the Soul Remembrance Whale's size did not increase. But this sword horn was becoming thicker at a speed visible to the naked eye. The originally shallow lines on the corner protruded. These textures that looked like whorls eventually turned into one after another. It was a rune that contained soul energy. Runes collided with each other around the soul remembrance whale's horn. It formed a special force field composed of soul power. This soul force field was flipped and fitted together. The willpower rune that had fused with the soul thought whale had absorbed and released souls. They achieved the same result through different means. After the spirit remembrance whale's horn finished its transformation, just as Lin Yuan thought that the soul thought whale was about to complete its metamorphosis, when it became a bronze fantasy breed fae, the soul thought whale's body changed again. Others could not see the soul thought whale. However, Lin Yuan could clearly see the state of the soul thought whale. The spirit remembrance whale looked like a translucent little white whale. However, compared to a normal white whale, it had an extra sharp horn. However, soul imprints were slowly appearing on the whale's skin. Lin Yuan took a closer look at these soul engravings. He realized that most of the souls were collected by the spirit thought whale when it went to the lava. Apart from the soul of the jade gui, there were also the souls of the other dead things. They were all absorbed by the soul remembrance whale. Now on the spirit remembrance whale's skin, there were images of these dead souls. Every time the spirit thought whale breathed, the faint patterns on its skin would disappear. It will become a little fainter. This meant that the soul power had been completely absorbed by the soul thought whale. And those souls that were engraved very clearly, most of them came from fays that had just died in the lava field's core region. With the soul thought whale's current strength, it would take a long time to absorb all these souls. It should take a long time. Soon, he would have to use the spirit chi crystals that he had saved up. It was time to upgrade the soul remembrance whale. At that time, the soul thought whale's absorption of soul power would greatly increase. The soul thought whale's ability, Soul Knot, and its exclusive skill, Burning Soul Rebirth. These two abilities were not enough to cause the soul thought whale's skin to undergo such a change. The changes in the soul thought whale's skin should be related to advancing into a fantasy breed. It was related to the new exclusive skill he had obtained. At that moment, Lin Yuan suddenly realized something. On the soul thought whale's skin were the relatively complete souls. It was continuously compressed by the soul remembrance whale, and finally turned into an imprint. It attached itself to the whale's tail. The soul thought whale's body was also shrinking, as it evolved into a fantasy breed. From the previous 2 to 3 meters, it was now about 1 meter long. Including the whale horn, it was less than 2 meters. The evolved soul thought whale circled around Lin Yuan. After all, the spirit thought whale was a living being born from the whale's soul. It had just become a fantasy breed, but it already had extremely high intelligence. The soul thought whale communicated with Lin Yuan. Master, can you hear Nian Nian's voice? Nian Nian used the language in the absorbed soul memory to communicate with Master. Master should be able to understand, right? Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan could not help but lament. Sure enough, the soul element was the most mysterious element. Now that the soul thought whale had absorbed the souls of the dead, it possessed abilities similar to genius. However, through communication, Lin Yuan realized that the soul thought whale's brain capacity could not be compared to genius. Genius could remember a lot of knowledge, but the spirit remembrance whale could not. When the spirit remembrance whale chose to look at the memories of a soul when it was alive, the soul memory that was previously read would be forgotten. But even so, in Lin Yuan's opinion, the spirit remembrance whale's ability, it was also an extremely domineering ability. The spirit remembrance whale could be called a criminal investigation expert on the battlefield. Through examining the souls of dead objects, it could make the dead speak. Nian Nian was obviously the name that the spirit remembrance whale had given itself. In Lin Yuan's opinion, Nian Nian's name was rather nice. Nian Nian, how much more of the jade gui's soul is lacking? How much more can it awaken its memories? Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, the spirit remembrance whale opened its mouth. A spider image shot out from the spirit remembrance whale's mouth. This spider image was sluggish and did not move at all. The spirit remembrance whale used its sharp horn to stab at the spider image. After sensing it for a while, it spoke. Master, I want this spider image to regain its memories. I need at least 9 more, the same amount of remnant souls that I absorbed previously. Even if it recovers, it can only recover the most important memories. If I want to remember all the details of my past life, I'll need at least 40 remnant souls of the same amount. Upon hearing the soul thought wail, Lin Yuan nodded. Lin Yuan had already told Blood Beginning and the mother of Bloodbath about this matter in advance. Even if it didn't work, he had no other choice. Let's hope that the silk handkerchief brought by Heaven's Blessed Dojo's Grand Dojo Master. Could it really contain quite a bit of Jade Gui's remnant soul? Lin Yuan looked at the flickering remnant souls on the soul thought whale. He was even more curious about the exclusive skill that the soul thought whale had obtained after becoming a fantasy breed. Lin Yuan immediately used Morbius True Data. He began to investigate the fantasy breed soul thought whale. Lin Yuan found that the soul thought whale's new exclusive skill was called Remembrance Bestowment, Psyche Bestowment. Through the collection and fusion of dead souls, when the dead souls reach a certain degree of completeness, the dead souls can be turned into psyche imprints. Attaching the psyche imprints to the same kind of life form can help increase the same kind of life form's perception ability, making it easier for the same kind of life form to comprehend will and rules. Upon seeing the soul thought whale's exclusive skill, Lin Yuan was at a loss for words. Oh my god! The soul thought whale's exclusive skill, Psyche Bestowment, could be done through human means? Helping Fays comprehend exclusive skills? There were many Fays in the world. It was very rare for Fays to rely on themselves to comprehend exclusive skills. The acid corrosion queen bee still had no signs of comprehending a willpower rune. If it killed a fantasy breed or a myth breed bee Fey, it would be extremely dangerous. It would let the soul thought whale absorb the remnant soul of this bee Fey. The Fey that it had just killed would definitely have a complete remnant soul. It would then let the soul thought whale condense the psyche imprints on its tail. It would then imprint the psyche imprints on the acid corrosion queen bee's body. It would probably increase the acid corrosion queen bee's chances of comprehending a willpower rune. In fact, they could even choose different Fays. It could guide the Fey to comprehend a willpower rune when evolving into a fantasy breed. This ability was simply too powerful. It could be said that the soul thought whale was the same as genius. They both subverted the main world's public perception. In the public's perception, apart from some treasures that could increase perception, there was nothing else that could help Fays comprehend a willpower rune. Chapter 1572. Furthermore, it was the soul thought whale's exclusive skill, soul thought bestowment. It could be used on Fays. Could it be used on spirit chi professionals? Lin Yuan asked the soul thought whale. Nian Nian, when you were searching for dead souls in the lava just now, I remember that you found a lot of dead spirit chi professionals' souls. See if you can make the souls of these dead spirit chi professionals into soul remembrance seals. The soul thought whale heard Lin Yuan's words. The soul imprint on his body started to wander. Soon, the soul images of the spirit chi professionals appeared. The spirit thought whale's body lit up. The soul thought whale chose a relatively bright spirit chi professional's soul. Then, he turned the soul into a soul remembrance seal. It was compressed to the tail. This spirit chi professional's soul had formed a soul remembrance seal. It was much smaller than the soul remembrance imprints on the soul remembrance whale's tail. Lin Yuan could understand all of this. Firstly, it was because of the soul remembrance imprints formed by the souls of spirit creatures on the soul remembrance whale's tail. They were basically diamond, fantasy, and myth breed Fays. Secondly, a spirit chi professional's soul force was weaker than a Fays. Since he was now experimenting with his conjecture, he did not care what willpower rune this dead soul had comprehended when it was alive. Lin Yuan instructed Nian Nian. Nian Nian, imprint this soul remembrance imprint on my body. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's command, Nian Nian gently lifted its tail. It attached its tail to Lin Yuan's head. This soul remembrance seal entered Lin Yuan's body. Lin Yuan suddenly felt it. In his spiritual world, there was a faint feeling of enlightenment. However, this comprehension was simply too faint, almost indiscernible. It was hard to grasp this feeling. It seemed like he wanted to rely on the soul remembrance seal that he obtained from the dead spirit chi professional. It was not realistic to comprehend a willpower rune. However, a person's comprehension of a certain willpower rune had reached a critical point. When there was only a layer of window paper between them, the trace of comprehension brought by the remembrance seal would definitely have a miraculous effect. Lin Yuan looked at the soul thought whale in shock. The existence of the soul remembrance whale was the same as genius. They were all forbidden existences. He absolutely could not let anyone else know about this. The soul remembrance whale could be considered a key. The person who controls the spirit thought whale can use this key to choose whether to walk the path of heaven or the path of hell. If Lin Yuan indulged in the soul thought whale's exclusive skill, soul bestowment, he would not be able to use it. Lin Yuan was likely to become like Di Wanmi. He no longer cared about the lives of spirit chi professionals. He only treated it as a supplement to improve himself. In the end, he calmed his heart and made an oath in his heart. He would never use the soul remembrance whale's exclusive skill, the soul remembrance, as a precondition, brutally killing spirit chi professionals. But when facing the enemy, he would kill the enemy. Then, using soul remembrance to bestow was a very normal thing. Lin Yuan stayed true to his heart. However, he was definitely not a Virgin Mary who would show mercy to his enemies. Especially now, when the entire origin world was in turmoil. It could be said that the spirit remembrance whale existed. All the Fays in the spirit lock spatial zone were beneficiaries. Even if some Fays didn't have great talent, they wouldn't be able to do so. It was through the soul thought whale's exclusive skill, soul thought bestowal. Lin Yuan could also help it comprehend its exclusive skill bit by bit. He was advancing toward the fantasy breed, and even the myth breed. Lin Yuan wasn't in a hurry to put the soul thought whale back into the spirit lock spatial zone. Instead, he took the spirit chi crystals and said to the soul thought whale, "Nian Nian, absorb the spirit chi in these spirit chi crystals. Nian Nian, absorb the spirit chi in these spirit crystals. I will raise your level all the way to the diamond level now." While speaking, Lin Yuan crushed all the spirit chi crystals in his hand. A large amount of spirit chi enveloped the soul thought whale. It caused the soul thought whale's grade to constantly increase. The instant the soul thought whale's strength increased to gold, the entire spirit lock spatial zone shook in an instant. Lin Yuan could feel the spirit lock spatial zone's area constantly expanding. Lin Yuan hurriedly left the spirit lock spatial zone with the soul thought whale. Outside the spirit lock spatial zone, the soul thought whale's grade continued to increase. Due to Morbius' advancement to gold, the spirit lock spatial zone's area started to expand. The original spirit lock spatial zone's area was 160 square meters. After the spirit lock spatial zone's area was expanded, it should be able to reach 320 square meters. Such an area was enough for Lin Yuan to make more arrangements in the spirit lock spatial zone. The expansion of the spirit pool and pure land of bliss. It could also bring more benefits for Lin Yuan. At that moment, Lin Yuan heard a voice that he hadn't heard for a long time, but was abnormally familiar. "Partner, long time no see." Upon hearing this voice, Lin Yuan's face immediately revealed a sunny smile. Lin Yuan excitedly communicated with Morbius through his spiritual energy. "Morbius, I guessed that you would be able to wake up when you reached gold." Hearing this, Morbius's cold tone was filled with warmth. "Partner, you're growing very quickly. You allowed me to reach gold in such a short period of time. After advancing to the gold rank, I gained a trace of memory. The current me is actually incomplete." Upon hearing Morbius' words, Lin Yuan lowered his head to look at the Morbius hoop on his wrist. Lin Yuan had long noticed that there were many small holes on the copper-colored Morbius hoop. These small holes seemed to be originally embedded with something. "Morbius, was there something originally embedded in the small holes on the hoop?" Upon hearing that, Morbius shook its head. "Partner, the things in the small holes should be able to be replaced at will. However, I'm not sure what exactly is needed for the things in the small holes. Perhaps when I encounter it, I will be able to sense it. Partner, if there is a chance to fill these small holes, every time one is filled, those Fays that you spirit locked can be matched with the small holes on the hoop. Remove the restrictions of spirit locked." Upon hearing Morbius' words, Lin Yuan pondered for a moment. Then he asked in pleasant surprise. Removing the restrictions of spirit locked refers to the phase that have spirit locked, except for normal abilities. Can other abilities be unlocked? Upon hearing that, Morbius nodded. That's right, partner. Upon hearing Morbius' affirmative answer, Lin Yuan suddenly had a feeling that he had raised a group of children. Originally, these children were all paralyzed and could only sit in wheelchairs. However, he was suddenly told that these children now had a chance to stand up and return to their normal level. Lin Yuan did his best to nurture each of the phase that had spirit locked. He helped them create the most optimal evolutionary conditions. Lin Yuan had always been curious about his phase. For example, the other abilities of the Jasmine Lily, Blackie, and Purple Firmament. Chapter 1573. Previously, Lin Yuan had only been curious and had no expectations. But after that, as long as he found the Mobius strip, he would be able to find what was inside the hole. These were the skills of Jasmine Lily, Little Black, and Purple Firmament. Lin Yuan would always have a chance to see it. Morbius, after the Radiance 100 sequence selection is over, I'll take you to find the thing that needs to be filled in this hole. Even if you don't know what's inside the hole, I'll take you to the main world and dimensional world. I believe that we will be able to sense it. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Morbius' stern face revealed a smile. Buddy, you've worked hard. Morbius was a fae. If Lin Yuan's life had started from his birth, then he would have died. It was like a companion to Morbius. There was a deep bond. It was the same for Morbius and Lin Yuan. It could be said that in this world, nothing was more sincere to Lin Yuan than Morbius. But in the end, Morbius was still a living creature. There was no living being that didn't wish to recall their past. Morbius was no exception. At that moment, Morbius heard Lin Yuan continue speaking. Partner, one day I will bring you along and complete you, so that you can clearly investigate your own secrets. Lin Yuan's tone was very firm. It was like a promise. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Morbius felt warmth in its heart for no reason. Upon seeing Lin Yuan, Morbius said softly, Partner, on the road of life, I will still protect you with everything I have. At this point, Morbius suddenly thought of something. Partner, your sacred source life form, the sacred sword-wielding queen, was fused with my origin power. My spirit lock spatial zone is able to produce pure spirit chi. It's because the spirit transformation pool can decompose and purify the spirit energy within the energy ores. In essence, it is the origin of all the pure spirit chi in the spirit lock spatial zone. All of it comes from the spirit pool, which releases and purifies the spirit chi within the energy ores. Actually, I think my origin power is more compatible with sacred source life forms. I can even change the energy within a sacred source life form at will. I feel that what I need is more likely to appear in the dimensional world. Upon hearing Morbius' words, Lin Yuan nodded gently. In any case, Morbius' words were tantamount to delineating a range for Lin Yuan. Having a scope was much easier than having no scope to do things. For the sake of Morbius, Lin Yuan decided. After the end of the Radiance 100 sequence, he immediately sorted out the Agai when continence matters. Before the turmoil in the origin world, he had put his mind on developing the swamp world. During the Radiance 100 sequence selection this time, he didn't have the chance to release the spirit-locked Fae. It allowed the spirit-locked Fae to execute abilities other than normal. However, Lin Yuan hoped that during the 10,000 Nations Convention, the 10,000 Nations Convention would be held. These Faes that he had locked with Spirit Lock would be able to release the brilliance that they should have. Morbius, you should be able to sense that there are two souls in the depths of my brain. These two souls are in a separate state, but both of them can be independent. But at the end of the day, whether it's my soul in my previous life or my soul in this life, it's all my own soul. I think my soul can contract another sacred source life form. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Morbius answered, Partner, you can indeed use another soul to contract a sacred source life form. However, your first sacred source life form was formed from the fusion of two sacred source life forms. Also, the sacred source life form, the Grace Queen, is a little special. Its origin aura far surpasses the origin aura of the Pursuit Saint Sword. I will fuse these two sacred source life forms. The amount of soul energy it occupies is more than that of a sacred source life form. But partner, you've been giving me control of your spiritual force. I can also share my soul power with you. When your soul power grows a bit more, it will be able to superimpose with my soul power. Partner, each of your two souls can form a contract with another sacred source life form. Upon hearing Morbius' words, Lin Yuan recalled what his master, the Moon Empress, had said. Those with high soul aptitude had the opportunity to contract two sacred source life forms. Both of his souls could form contracts with two sacred source life forms. That was the number of sacred source life forms he could control. Wouldn't that mean he could control four? Moreover, these sacred source life forms could be the same as the Grace Queen. They were formed by the fusion of two sacred source life forms. Coincidentally, Lin Yuan had discovered the secret of sacred source life forms in the swamp world. It seemed that heading to the Myriad Palace in the East Swamp Circle was a must. He had to choose two sacred source life forms that were suitable for him. Then, he would fuse the two sacred source life forms. It would definitely be easier to just fuse with two sacred source life forms. According to Morbius, Morbius could sense the energy level of an uncontracted sacred source life form. Sacred source life forms were formed when an apostle's faith level reached the middle level, and they activated their sacred source body. They were formed from totem energy. Bai Yen and the Dark Scorpion Apostle were both apostles. They could form sacred source life forms after death. On the surface, it was impossible to tell the difference. However, there was no doubt that the sacred source life form formed after Bai Yan's death was at the same level. It was higher than the Dark Scorpion Apostle's sacred source life form. Moreover, according to the rumors from Bai Yan, even a ruler who had yet to reach the samsara realm, after death, they would also turn into sacred source life forms. It could be said that every sacred source life form was like a golden egg. After being covered by the rainbow light, it was impossible to see what was inside the golden egg. However, the higher the level, the better. Even if Lin Yuan did not know what a sacred source life form was, he could choose it through Morbius' ability. He could also choose the sacred source life form with the highest level of energy. Lin Yuan felt that the Grace Queen was most likely an apostle when she was alive, a ruler who had yet to reach the samsara realm. Even if she was not, she must have been an apostle with extremely powerful faith power. Lin Yuan communicated with Morbius for a while. This allowed Lin Yuan to confirm the path he needed to take next. At that moment, Lin Yuan heard Morbius speak. Partner, the Spirit Lock spatial zone has been upgraded. As my rank increases, a new item has appeared in the Spirit Lock spatial zone. This thing should be very useful to you. Lin Yuan's interest was immediately piqued. He immediately returned to the Spirit Lock spatial zone. In the Spirit Lock spatial zone, Morbius stood beside Lin Yuan in its soul form. Previously, the Spirit Lock spatial zone had an area of 480 square meters. This was already quite a large area. Now that the Spirit Lock spatial zone had expanded, it felt like a miniature plane. Chapter 1574. Such a spacious area made Lin Yuan feel very comfortable. Previously, when Morbius was at Silver, the Spirit Lock spatial zone was actually very spacious. It was far from the Spirit Lock spatial zone's original size of 80. Every inch of space had to be used with great difficulty. After returning to the Spirit Lock spatial zone, Lin Yuan realized that the Spirit Lock spatial zone had become wider. Lin Yuan's most direct observation was the concentration of spirit qi in the spatial zone. It was a huge improvement compared to before. It was visible to the naked eye. Lin Yuan noticed that the phase in the spatial zone could produce qi phenomena. The wind speed rapid antelope's appearance was changing at a speed visible to the naked eye. The wind speed rapid antelope had already started to shed a layer of short fur. It was constantly growing new fur, although its bloodline hadn't metamorphosed. Under the nourishment of such spirit qi, the wind speed rapid antelope's aptitude had an obvious improvement. However, the ones with the greatest changes were definitely Genius and Chimey. Genius and Chimey were able to grow to this extent. It could be said that it was all due to the pure spirit qi. Genius and Chimey were currently covered by their own fur and feathers. Lin Yuan had seen such a situation many times in the past. It was the first time Lin Yuan discovered his special physique. When he woke up, he realized that Genius and Chimey had shed their fur. They had already occupied half of the bed. Lin Yuan was very glad. It was all thanks to him raising Morbius grade. Now Genius and Chimey were being nourished by the purer spirit chi. Their bloodline had been purified. When they reached Fantasy V, their bloodline would definitely evolve more thoroughly. Lin Yuan hadn't confirmed that Morbius was a gold spirit lock fae. He didn't have any excess willpower runes. Therefore Lin Yuan could either contract the soul thought whale, or encounter a fae that he would regret for life. Then he would comprehend the appropriate willpower rune according to the fae, or he would contract the jasmine lily. He would search for the appropriate fae, according to the comprehended willpower rune. However, if one were to really talk about these two choices, the first one was better. Now that Morbius was awake, Lin Yuan wasn't in a hurry to raise its grade. After Genius and Chimey completed their bloodline purification, under the pure spiritual energy, Genius and Chimey's bloodline purification was completed. They would automatically emerge from the pile of fur. He knew that he shouldn't disturb Genius and Chimey now. Lin Yuan thought of the new thing that Morbius had mentioned. There was no need for Morbius to point it out. Lin Yuan saw a well next to the spirit pool. Lin Yuan hurriedly walked to the side of the well. Through the mouth of the well, one could see that the bottom of the well was made of dry green bricks. There wasn't even a drop of water. Morbius came to Lin Yuan's side and said with a smile, "Buddy, I think this well should be of some use to you." Morbius didn't keep him in suspense and explained to Lin Yuan, "This well is called the elemental well. It can speed up the activation of elemental energy. Then, distribute the various elemental energies evenly in the spirit lock spatial zone. At the same time, the well water can dissolve elemental energy, increase the purity of elemental energy. However, the water in the elemental well isn't unlimited. The accumulation of well water requires the spiritual chi in the space to slowly replenish it. I can only replenish about half a bowl in a day. If there is a need, this elemental well can be used when executing the exclusive skill, Pure Land of Bliss." He appeared in the Pure Land of Bliss. However, it will consume a certain amount of well water every second when it appears in the Pure Land of Bliss. Upon hearing Morbius' introduction, Lin Yuan froze for half a minute. Then, a look of surprise appeared on his face. At present, Lin Yuan had mastered pure elemental energy, water elemental energy, wind elemental energy, earth elemental energy, fire elemental energy, and dark elemental energy. Water, wind, earth, and fire. These four elemental energies originated from the four elemental shellfish. The dark elemental energy came from the dark crystal beetle. There were many different types of elemental energy. For example, metal with light, thunder, and many other elements. He currently had no way to prepare it. However, he only needed to find the spiritual ingredient with the corresponding attribute. Throw it into the elemental well. He would be able to obtain a highly concentrated elemental solution. The elemental well could evenly distribute various elemental energies to the surrounding environment. It made Lin Yuan feel as though the spirit lock spatial zone was at this moment. It really became a miniature world. The growth of phase couldn't just rely on pure spirit chi. Elemental energy was also indispensable. Light elemental energy was under the effect of a special fae. For example, the sun reflection monarch lotus could even simulate the illumination of the sun. If the spirit lock spatial zone continued to expand, it could be said that it could expand infinitely. With spirit chi and elemental energy, the spirit lock spatial zone was a paradise for spirit chi professionals to live in. The elemental well could allow Lin Yuan to prepare elemental solutions. The purification function of the elemental well's water allowed Lin Yuan to prepare heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls. The four elemental energies with higher purity. It was the same as breaking the world's restrictions on phase. Apart from that, the elemental well's appearance also allowed Lin Yuan to have a new support function. While using the Pure Land of Bliss to heal the phase-injured roots, the elemental well could create an elemental energy supply station on the Pure Land of Bliss. It could enhance the elemental Fey. Even when the enemy sealed a certain elemental energy, Ling Yuan could still create a relatively perfect elemental environment. This was an ability that even sacred source lifeforms didn't dare to say they had. It was an ability that encompassed all types of elemental energy. It was simply too amazing and powerful. However, the prerequisite was to constantly consume the elemental well's water. Looking at the bottom of the elemental well, there weren't any signs of moisture. Thinking back to what Morbius said, the elemental well could only produce half a bowl of well water per day. Ling Yuan felt that it would take an indefinite amount of time for the well water to fill the bottom of the well. It could be said that the appearance of the elemental well had refreshed his understanding of Morbius. Morbius was destined to have unlimited possibilities. Of course, this did not mean that the elemental pearls produced by the elemental shellfish were useless. However, the heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls that contained the goddess Grapple were no longer his best means of producing pure elemental energy. The heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls were still an important bargaining chip for him to exchange for resources. All of a sudden, Ling Yuan noticed a bundle of white fur and a bundle of blue feathers in the distance. There was a sound. Next, a petite white civet appeared. A bird with pale blue feathers crawled out from the pile of hair and feathers. One nimbly scurried onto Ling Yuan's shoulder, while the other landed on his ear. He looked at Genius and Chimey. Ling Yuan was surprised to discover that Genius and Chimey's bloodline clearly did not transform. However, the changes that had occurred previously were too great. Chapter 1575. If it wasn't for the fact that he could confirm that one of the two little fellows was Genius, and the other was Chimey, he wouldn't have believed it. Ling Yuan did not dare to recognize it. Cleverness and the change of sound. It was just like the changes before, and after he consumed the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar. Before consuming the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar, the lead essence in his body had yet to be cleansed. It was inevitable that there would be a lot of impurities on the body, and the skin would not be transparent. After consuming the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar, after getting rid of all impurities, Ling Yuan's aura, appearance, and figure had all undergone tremendous changes. Even his height had increased by 2 centimeters. Genius was still as white as before. It was just that before being smart, it was as white as snow. There was also a hint of silver in it. The current white was similar to the white that only existed in the imagination of humans. This kind of whiteness was indescribable. Genius's originally 2 light blue eyes were like Paraeba tourmalines, but now the color of its eyes had changed. It turned into a deep blue color like topaz. There was a kind of restraint that gathered all the blue in one place. It makes the cleverness seem wiser. There were still 8 tails behind Genius. If one were to describe Genius' tail as a fox's tail, then Genius' tail looked like a fox's tail. Now his tail no longer had the swollen and fluffy feeling of a fox's tail. His 8 tails fluttered without any wind. Like 8 ribbons being blown by the wind, they became even more graceful and agile. The change in Genius was mostly in its temperament. The change in Chimey was a complete change in her appearance. Although the feathers on Chimey's body were still pale blue in color, its feathers were still azure in color. However, at every moment, on Chimey's azure blue feathers, there are blazing suns rising and sinking. The sunrise and sunset alternated between Chimey's feathers. When the sun rose, Genius' feathers would turn into a gorgeous gold color. By the time Chimey's feathers turned completely golden, it was already too late. It will automatically form a glazed flame on the surface of its body. This made Lin Yuan feel that Chimey resembled the legendary vermilion bird in his previous life. However, it was different from the legendary vermilion bird. This was because a small bird like the vermilion bird possessed the power of fire. The energy that Chimey grasped was light, and it produced heat from light. This ability was similar to the mother of Bloodbath's light-type Sky Corona Jade Spider bloodline. They achieved the same result through different means. Chimey's entire body turned golden, and glazed flames ignited around it. It reminded Lin Yuan of the legend of the Golden Crow. However, Chimey was clearly not walking the path guided by the Twilight Rune. After the sun had set on the feather, the color of Chimy's feathers will darken. This was a characteristic that Chimy had never displayed before. The cloud patterns that had faded from Chimy's body had disappeared. After Chimy's fur darkened, it once again climbed onto Chimy's body. Sound-type energy was formless and formless. Now Chimy was controlling the cloud patterns, causing them to form cloud talismans around its body. When the chi notes collided, they could produce any sound that Chimy wanted to produce. Lin Yuan immediately waved his hand and let the source sand's guard sand condense a sand wall. Lin Yuan said to Chimy, "Chimy, try to control these musical notes and use the skill-shattering sound strike." Upon hearing that, Chimy's cloud patterns collided with each other. Every time they collided, a sound awl would be produced. After the sonic awl hit the sand wall, it exploded into several smaller sonic awls. Perform a second attack and pierce. The source sand's quality had been promoted to Fantasy V. Originally, the sand wall that the source sand condensed with the guard sand could withstand the attacks of all of Lin Yuan's other phase. Every time the other phase evolved, the source sand would help them test the moves. Now Chimy was using the collision of musical notes to casually produce the shattering sound strike. It was obvious that it was not using its full strength. However, the sand wall was penetrated by the shattering sound strike for a second time, and a large hole was opened. This was not to say that the source sand had become weaker. Instead, Chimy's current strength had become stronger. However, Chimy's display to Lin Yuan was far from over. A large number of cloud patterns turned into musical notes and shook off from Chimy's azure blue wings. Nearly 100 cloud patterns collided with each other and bounced back and forth as Chimy flapped its wings. Every note bounced and collided with all the other notes. A sonic awl could be produced. A dense shattering sound strike was produced. Lin Yuan thought, "This is bad." He hurriedly injected a large amount of spiritual power into the source sand. Layers of guard sand walls formed out of thin air. Lin Yuan could no longer calculate the number of shattering sound strikes that Chimy had produced. However, there were at least tens of thousands of strikes. These shattering sound strikes bombarded the first layer of the guard sand wall. They blasted the guard sand wall into sand that filled the sky. Fortunately, the shattering sound strike would shatter after the first collision. It turned into more small sonic awls that were far less lethal than the first sonic awl. However, nearly 100,000 small sonic awls bombarded the sand wall. The instantaneous explosion of impact directly blew up 17 sand walls. Inside the Spirit Lock spatial zone, sand was everywhere, and it was a mess. Fortunately, all the phase in the Spirit Lock spatial zone had been protected by the barrier formed by the guard sand. Otherwise, Chimy's attack could even blow up its nest. Upon seeing this scene, Chimy's not-so-smart little brain immediately knew that it had gotten into trouble. Chimy just wanted to show off its newly obtained ability to Lin Yuan. However, it did not expect to destroy it. At that moment, Chimy did not even have the strength to apologize. This was because the collision of musical notes produced 10,000 shattering sound strikes. It consumed the spiritual power in Chimy's body. Chimy's spiritual power had already been exhausted, and it had been completely drained. Fortunately, due to the lack of spirit chi in Chimy's body, the sonic shattering strike's attack power was evenly distributed. Otherwise, tens of thousands of sonic booms would be blasted onto Kanosha. Even if it was the aftermath of the explosion, he could not block it. They had to disturb Di Wanmi, who was refining the prized artifact, so that Di Wanmi could take action to protect them. Lin Yuan looked helplessly at Chimy, whose little claws had become powerless on his ear. With a single spirit injection, Chimy was released. However, the spirit chi in Chimy's body was overdraft. Even though he had used spirit injection and obtained spirit chi, it would take some time for him to recover the activity of his cells, which had been drained of spiritual energy. Chimy, which had just recovered a little, looked at Lin Yuan apologetically, and the Spirit Lock spatial zone that was affected by him. He said softly, "Yuan, I'm sorry. The next time, Chimy, I won't dare to casually use a skill without understanding its might." Lin Yuan reached out and touched the feathers on Chimy's head as he said, Alright, let's go. Chimey, thanks to this, you were able to test this ability in the Spirit Lock spatial zone. If he had not tested it, he would have used it in battle. No matter how powerful the 10,000 shattering sound strikes were, it was just a one-time deal. Lin Yuan had grasped a variety of sword skills. These sword skills were Lin Yuan's main offensive means. Chapter 1576. Chimey unleashed an attack with all its might. It was also impossible to compare to the lethality of a sword technique. Therefore, he had already positioned Chimey as a half-attacker and half-support character. On the battlefield, Chimey could use its shattering sound to carry out offensive and control tactics. Although the broken sound strike was formless and formless. However, the Fae could sense the pressure from the sound in the air. He could still determine the location of the broken sound strike. However, Chimey could use sound shattering strike to carry out high-frequency attacks to control the opponent's movement path. If the other party wanted to force his way through, he would have no choice but to let the sound-shattering strike land on his body. Furthermore, broken sound strike was only Chimey's most insignificant skill. This continued until Chimey advanced to the diamond stage and obtained the skill, melody transformation. Only then did Lin Yuan attach importance to the sound-shattering strike. Chimey's silver skill, bathing light, could last for a long time. The gold skill, sunlight ray, could weaken the target. At the same time, it enhanced the plant phase activity. It was a perfect match for Red Thorn. The platinum skill, Nirvana sound, could nullify death. One of them was to create a favorable environment. It was an exclusive skill to absorb the power of the sun. The current Chimey was already relatively perfect. After Chimey awakened its bloodline again, Lin Yuan was very curious. What kind of changes would occur? There were two types of phase bloodline evolution. One was to evolve according to the original bloodline. This kind of evolution wouldn't allow the Fae to evolve, changing the Fae's name and species. However, if the bloodline was reformed based on the original foundation, he no longer followed the original path. It was the Fae's name and even the Fae's species. It was very likely that everything would change after evolution. For example, Chimey and Genius had always been on the path of reforming bloodlines. At that moment, Lin Yuan heard Genius speak. Lin Yuan, Genius' spiritual energy has increased again. Moreover, the diamond rank spirit tail activation has undergone some changes. Smart's previous skill, spirit tail activation. He had used his soul power to consume a tail. Double my soul power. It was a skill that consumed his tail to strengthen his soul power. It would hurt the source of Genius. Lin Yuan had asked Genius once. Only then did he realize that the mental energy in Genius' brain was only a small portion of its entire body's mental energy. Now the intelligent brain stored more soul energy. Genius's 8 tails were Genius's mobile psyche warehouses. It was for this reason. Only by consuming his tail could his soul power be doubled. Every time its tail was severed, Genius wanted to recover. It would take at least a few months to nourish. Furthermore, it would affect the usage of his exclusive skill, interconnection tail. If too many of its tails were cut off at once, its mental strength would be severely depleted. In order to protect itself, Genius would forget part of its knowledge. These were not what Lin Yuan wanted to see. Therefore, Lin Yuan had never thought of letting Genius use the diamond spirit tail stimulation. At that moment, Genius continued to speak. Lin Yuan, Genius spirit tail stimulation can instantly consume its own tail. But now, Genius can use its own mental power to condense an auxiliary tail. These appendages usually don't show themselves. But every time a tail is consumed, the appendage will quickly grow and replace the severed tail. However, if I want to form a tail, Genius might consume a large amount of spiritual type spirit materials every day. When Lin Yuan heard Genius' words, he revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. If that was the case, Genius would activate its diamond rank spirit tail. He could finally use it again. Moreover, he did not need to feel any burden during the process of using it. This was because spirit tail stimulation would no longer cause any damage to Genius after it had its tail as a reserve. As for the spirit materials, the entire blissful sea tribe had been taken over by Gao Feng. Those were the bronze/epic angelfish of bliss that Lin Yuan had used a trick on. They were all sent by Gao Feng to the return from faraway manor. After Lin Yuan's spirit chi transformation, the angelfish of bliss had returned to normal. He could have as many angelfish of bliss rainbow-colored fish coats as he wanted. He wasn't afraid that cleverly would exhaust him. Lin Yuan immediately stored the 10,000 rainbow fish coats that Gao Feng had given him in the Fei storage box. He passed it to Genius. Smart, use these rainbow-colored fish cloaks first. I'll prepare more for you after I've used them up. Genius looked at the 10,000 fish coats in the Fei storage box and spoke in a childish voice. Lin Yuan, these fish coats should be smart enough to condense 2 tails. If he was smart and the other spirit chi professionals found out about it, he would definitely be punished. They would probably tremble in fear. What a wastrel! How much would 5,000 rainbow fish coats from the angelfish of bliss cost? Back when the blissful sea tribe was still around, a fish coat of such quality would be sold for at least 80,000 radiance dollars. Furthermore, he would not be scammed by the blissful sea tribe's fortune bag. If he obtained a fish card of the corresponding grade, don't even think about buying it. 5,000 rainbow fish coats would be equivalent to 400 million radiance dollars. No spirit chi professional would be able to withstand such an investment of resources. Even the descendants of the top factions wouldn't be willing to spend so much. 400 million radiance dollars would be enough to buy 10 bronze/epic phase. However, such an expenditure was considered a small matter to Lin Yuan. At that moment, the wind-speed rapid antelope had also emerged from the pile of fur. Lin Yuan was surprised to find that the wind-speed rapid antelope's bloodline hadn't transformed at all. His bloodline did not transform at all. He was still an antelope. This situation was truly too strange. The antelope bloodline was in the Fey world. It wasn't a rare bloodline. The wind-speed rapid antelope should have long evolved, or reverted to its ancestry. Could it be that the wind-speed rapid antelope was going to learn from Chimey? Was he going to stubbornly walk on his original bloodline? Lin Yuan had created too many miracles when he started to enhance phase. Lin Yuan was prepared to witness the wind-speed rapid antelope. What kind of surprise would it give him? The wind-speed rapid antelope intimately came to Lin Yuan's side and nudged his calf. Lin Yuan rubbed the wind-speed rapid antelope's head and noticed that the fur on the wind-speed rapid antelope's head was very soft. It was unbelievably soft. Moreover, it was surging with extremely pure wind elements. The purity of the wind element was comparable to that of heavenly maiden-level elemental pearls. Such elemental concentration appeared on a Fey. It was simply too shocking. He planned to wait for the elemental well to produce well water. He fused some wind-type heavenly maiden-level elemental pearls into the elemental well water, producing wind elemental energy that far surpassed the limit. He wanted to see what would happen to the wind-speed rapid antelope after drinking it. In any case, he had plenty of heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls. You can do whatever you want. Lin Yuan said softly to the wind-speed rapid antelope. Wind-speed rapid antelope, control the breeze and clean the spirit lock spatial zone. A cool breeze blew across the land. In an instant, the cool breeze gathered all the dust in the spirit lock spatial zone to the wind-speed rapid antelope's feet. Lin Yuan was surprised to find out. When the wind-speed rapid antelope executed the wind elemental ability, a majestic shadow actually appeared on its back. Chapter 1577. This majestic phantom had 4 horns on its head. The 4 corners were like branches branching out wantonly. When the wind element gathered on the body of the wind-speed rapid antelope, wind elements gathered at the 4 corners of the wind-speed rapid antelope's silhouette, forming flower after flower. This phantom was also in the shape of an antelope. However, compared to a normal antelope, this phantom didn't have a mouth. Wind elemental energy flowed wantonly around the phantom's body. It was as if this antelope was the wind element itself. Lin Yuan suddenly thought of a possibility. The Moon Empress had told Lin Yuan before. When the elemental energy in some phase bodies reached a certain level, they would be able to absorb the elemental energy. Elemental assimilation may occur in the body. For example, Chu Si's obsidian iron wild bull's horn was evolving into a fantasy breed. After the metal energy in his body reached a certain level, it began to divide. It allowed the bull horns to take elemental form and form freely. Right now, the wind speed rapid antelope was very suitable for this type of evolution. But there was something different. Firstly, the wind speed rapid antelope had yet to undergo elemental transformation. Secondly, when the obsidian iron wild bull's sword horn had been elementalized, the sword horn had been destroyed. No shadow appeared behind him. However, after enhancing phase for a long time, Ling Yuan understood something. That was the evolution of phase, and no one could say for sure. In the eyes of ordinary people, Class 5 creation masters had already seen the limits of the creator. However, even Class 5 creation masters were unable to enhance genius and chimey. Even if a Class 5 creation master arrived at the location of a large whale landing, they wouldn't be able to do so if he hadn't contracted Azure Blue, and Azure Blue had coincidentally obtained the skill Face Possession. He wouldn't have been able to kill Azure Blue. No one could find the legendary Remembrance Soul Whale. Right now, the wind speed rapid antelope was still the most responsible butler in the Spirit Lock spatial zone. No matter how far the wind speed rapid antelope could go in the future, Ling Yuan was willing to provide the best resources. Witnessing with the wind speed rapid antelope, Chimey was still waiting for its spiritual power to recover. Chimey was going to undergo a bloodline breakthrough in a while. This bloodline breakthrough would happen before Chimey became a myth breed. The final breakthrough. It was very likely that this would be the last time before the creation of a creation seed. After a Fae became a myth breed, its bloodline would solidify. Unless there was a great opportunity, it would be very difficult for it to change again. Therefore, he had to let Chimey be in peak condition. Then he would undergo a bloodline breakthrough. When Morbius advanced to the gold grade, the spirit chi concentration in the Spirit Lock spatial zone increased. Even Genius and Chimey's bloodline had changed. For some reason, Ling Yuan had a premonition. He felt that Genius and Chimey would be in more danger after this evolution. Ling Yuan forced himself to calm down. After pondering for a moment, Ling Yuan decided to stop Di Wanmi, who was crafting the artifact. He was prepared to let Di Wanmi stand guard at the side. If something happened to Genius and Chimey, he would be able to provide assistance from the side. At that moment, Ling Yuan suddenly heard a whale cry coming from the floating island whale embryo. He walked forward and placed his palm on the floating island whale's eggshell. He immediately sensed the floating island whale's intimacy. The baby whale in the floating island whale's eggshell kept hitting the eggshell. It wanted to touch Ling Yuan's palm. To a certain extent, the increase in the concentration of spirit chi in the Spirit Lock spatial zone could be said to be a good sign. It accelerated the hatching of the floating island whale. In the Spirit Lock spatial zone, there were still many heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls in stock. The increase in the concentration of spirit chi allowed the floating island whale to consume the heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls more efficiently. As long as he could guarantee a sufficient supply of heavenly maiden grade water type elemental pearls, he would be able to do so. Before the Radiance 100 sequence, the floating island whale would be able to hatch. At that moment, Chimey was already under Blackie's spirit injection. Its body had reached its peak state. Chimey said softly to Ling Yuan, "Ling Yuan, Chimey, prepare to evolve your bloodline." Ling Yuan knew when he saw the excited expression on Chimey's face. Chimey was most likely thinking about the fan meet and greet. Chimey was so excited because it was thinking about the fan meet and greet. The ignorant were fearless. Genius, who understood the star web, had a very serious expression. Genius knew that Ling Yuan was creating this opportunity for it and Chimey. Exactly how many resources had he spent? It also understood how dangerous this evolution was for it and Chimey. Genius was afraid that Chimey would take it lightly. Later on, when it evolved, it would not be prepared in advance. It would be in a passive state. Smarty reminded the speaker, "Chimey, you must be more serious when evolving your bloodline. Try your best to endure the pain, and don't let your consciousness be in a chaotic state." After hearing Genius' reminder, Chimey nodded its little head seriously. Chimey might not have much knowledge. However, Chimey could still vividly remember how painful it was during its previous evolution. Lin Yuan personally plucked a few spirit wisdom purple zoysia and handed them to Genius. Then he said to Chimey, "Chimey, return to the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree. Go and absorb the energy from the heavenly flames. I will accompany you here." After hearing Lin Yuan's words, Chimey flew back to the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree's nest. It no longer restricted itself and started to absorb the heavenly flame's energy. Genius used its small claws to pick up the spirit wisdom purple zoysia. It started to chomp on it. Lin Yuan had never eaten the spirit wisdom purple zoysia before, but when he saw Genius' conflicted expression, he knew that the spirit wisdom purple zoysia wouldn't taste good. Genius needed to digest the spirit wisdom purple zoysia. There was a process. Therefore, the first to evolve was Chimey. The entire phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree was burning in an instant. Chimey's body was burning with a glazed flame that enveloped the entire phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree. The leaves of the heavenly flames on the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree exploded in the glazed flame that lingered on Chimey's body. The energy in the exceptional flames rapidly surged into Chimey's body. Chimey was like a bottomless pit that absorbed the energy in the alien flames. Chimey was currently screaming in pain. However, Lin Yuan could not be bothered to feel sorry for Chimey. This was because he had to throw a large number of exceptional flames at the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree, so that the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree could replenish its energy. Otherwise, not only would the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree suffer from Chimey's unrestrained demand for heavenly flames, drained and turned into dead wood, even Chimey's evolution would be due to the lack of heavenly flames energy. It stopped abruptly. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan waved his hand. Hundreds of mid-level deviant flames surged towards the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree. These deviant flames had just been stored in the leaves of the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree. The glazed flame had drawn out the energy of the mystical flame in the leaf. However, with the addition of more than 100 mid-grade heavenly flames, Chimey was a bottomless pit and showed no signs of satisfaction. Such a large number of exceptional flames entered Chimey's body. This made Lin Yuan even more uncertain. Chimey would be blasted into pieces in the blink of an eye if such an amount of exceptional flame energy erupted. Even a Mythai Fae would have no chance of survival when encountering such a huge amount of exceptional flame energy. There was no possibility of survival. However, Chimey was still showing its desire for the exceptional flame energy. Chapter 1578. As the saying goes, concern leads to chaos. He no longer knew if he should continue to provide Chimey with alien flames. The scorching Chimey had yet to lose its consciousness. Chimey's clear voice had become extremely hoarse at that moment. Lin Yuan, the strange flame. Upon hearing Chimey's request, he recalled that Chimey was currently upgrading its bloodline and worked hard to evolve. Lin Yuan made up his mind and threw another 100 mid-grade exceptional flames into the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree. At that moment, Lin Yuan was worried. However, compared to Chimey's performance in purifying its bloodline previously, Chimey's bloodline was much stronger. This time was undoubtedly much better. This was because the Remembrance Soul Whale gave Lin Yuan confidence. Even if something happened to Chimey during the process of its bloodline metamorphosis, it would still be fine. Lin Yuan used the Thought Soul Whale's soul knot ability. He could also collect Chimey's soul. Then, the Mother of Bloodbath would use the Sacred Source life form, Myriad Medicinal Spring, to revive it. However, at that time, Chimey had to start all over again. But at the very least, Chimey could continue living. It was said that the greatest expectation parents had for their children was not their children's achievements. What he wanted was for his children to live in peace. That was what Lin Yuan was thinking. The 100 strange flames that Lin Yuan had invested were still not enough. Lin Yuan gritted his teeth and continued to throw in the strange flame. He even threw 5 high-grade flames into the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree at once. Just as Lin Yuan thought that the strange flame's energy was about to be depleted again, when he still needed to invest, a phoenix cry echoed from Chimey's body. After the phoenix cry sounded, within the spirit lock spatial zone, a suppressive aura that only phoenix-type spiritual beings had appeared. A similar situation had happened to Chimey previously. However, at that time, the pressure was at the level of a Luan phoenix. This time, the pressure was clearly at the level of the main phoenix seed. Lin Yuan felt the pressure of this main phoenix species Fei, and looked at Chimey in a daze. Could it be because Chimey stayed on the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree for a long time and increased its strength? Could it be that the bloodline was advancing toward a main phoenix-type Fei? Chimey was still a fantasy breed Fei that had yet to become a myth breed. A fantasy breed Fei awakening the main phoenix species bloodline had already subverted common sense. It could be said that as long as Enin accepted the bloodline of the main phoenix, it would be able to survive. It would become the lowest-ranked main phoenix-type Fei in history. This meant that the purity of Chimey's main phoenix species bloodline was higher than the other main phoenix species Feis. However, Lin Yuan did not feel the slightest bit happy about this. Lin Yuan's heart thumped. He cursed inwardly. Lin Yuan knew Chimey very well. Chimey had the most stubborn temper among all of its Feis. Just like when he was learning to sing, in order to sing a line correctly, Chimey could stay awake the whole night. Most of the time, Lin Yuan would wake up in the morning. They realized that Chimey had fainted from exhaustion from practicing singing. The last time he had awakened the bloodline of the Luan phoenix. Chimey would use the sound bird bloodline in its body to devour the Luan phoenix bloodline. Chimey would still choose to use its sound bird bloodline to devour the bloodline of the main phoenix. But how could it be so easy to devour such a pure main phoenix bloodline? At that moment, the sound bird bloodline in Chimey's body had already started fighting with the main phoenix bloodline. A handful of golden blood turned into steam and seeped out of Chimey's body from its feathers. Lin Yuan's heart clenched at once. Before the first wave subsided, another wave arose. Genius, which had consumed the spirit wisdom purple Ganoderma, suddenly let out a painful groan. Lin Yuan saw Genius's 8 long tails that were fluttering like ribbons. They started to crumble inch by inch, and a blood mist spread out. The spiritual energy stored in the 8 long tails instantly surged out. Just as the spiritual energy was about to affect the other life forms in the spirit lock spatial zone, Genius let out a meow. Its childish voice sounded like it was crying out blood. Genius tried its best to control the spiritual energy that was about to burst out. However, Genius's control of spiritual energy, it instantly caused Genius to lose control of its mind. Genius's spiritual energy instantly burst out violently. Previously, Lin Yuan was unable to deeply understand how massive Genius's spiritual sea was. But now, Genius's violent spiritual energy, it allowed Lin Yuan to have a glimpse of Genius's terrifying spiritual energy. This berserk mental power was like a nightmare. It was letting out a sinister roar. Once such powerful spiritual energy spread out, it would instantly invade the brains of other life forms. It would destroy the consciousness of other life forms. It would turn the entire spirit lock spatial zone into a dead zone. In the blink of an eye, the 8 long tails had already vanished to their roots. Chimey's body had turned into a ball of blood again. The phoenix cry in its body didn't stop. From this phoenix cry, Lin Yuan could hear a hint of arrogance. Lin Yuan took a deep breath and summoned the Jasmine Lily. The Diamond X/Fantasy V Jasmine Lily was no longer the same as before. The bud of mountain jade shot out 2 healing light beams, and one was connected to Chimey's body. The other was connected to Genius's body. These 2 healing light beams were used together with the exclusive skill, Severed Connection. It had indeed stopped Genius's tail from vanishing. It had also allowed Chimey's crushed bones to slowly piece back together. There was even a faint and weak chirping sound of a bird coming from Chimey's body. The Jasmine Lily's vitality was constantly pouring into Chimey and Genius's body. Slowly, it was showing signs of being unable to endure. The spirit lock spatial zone had a large amount of pure spirit chi. There wasn't a need for Lin Yuan to supply it again. It was the most optimal environment for evolution. Diwanmi followed Lin Yuan's instructions. On one hand, he concocted a spirit fluid that specialized in suppressing the Phoenix-type bloodline for Chimey. On the other hand, he concocted a spirit fluid that had the effect of consolidating spiritual energy for Genius. The means of a Class 5 creation master were executed by Di Wanmi. It was indeed of great help. Lin Yuan hadn't activated the vitality imprint for a long time, as the Jasmine Lily's grade was raised to the limit of a fantasy breed Fae. The vitality in Lin Yuan's vitality imprint was now very strong. It was the highest amount of vitality he had obtained since obtaining the exclusive skill, Vitality Imprint. Originally, Lin Yuan was planning to use the Vitality Imprint on the Radiance 100 sequence. It would be used to deal with the Freedom Federation's conspiracy. But now, his two closest companions were in danger. Lin Yuan couldn't be bothered anymore. He immediately activated the Vitality Imprint. A green lotus pattern extended down from Lin Yuan's forehead. It spread to Lin Yuan's face. There was even a faint lotus pattern on his neck. A lotus shadow appeared beneath Lin Yuan's feet. Surging vitality seeped out from Lin Yuan's body. Under the Jasmine Lily's guidance, two lotus shadows wrapped around Genius and Chimey. The vitality imprint stored a large amount of vitality. It was like irrigating a barren mountain. This barren mountain would probably immediately become lush with vegetation. At this moment, this energy was frantically pouring into Genius and Chimey's body. It forcefully allowed Genius's broken tail to grow out bit by bit. It also allowed Chimey's broken bones to connect back together. The meatball-like Chimey had the shape of a bird again. However, everything was far from over. Chapter 1579. Lin Yuan let out a breath of relief. He felt that he had unlocked the Jasmine Lily's exclusive skill, Life Imprint. A large amount of vitality poured into Genius and Chimey's bodies. It allowed Genius and Chimey to withstand the burden of the bloodline metamorphosis on their bodies. However, before Lin Yuan could put his heart at ease, a voice suddenly rang out. Chimey and Genius were in trouble again. This time, Lin Yuan didn't know how to deal with it. This was because Genius had exploded into a crimson flower of blood. After Genius exploded, it froze in the spirit lock spatial zone. Lin Yuan's eyes were instantly filled with blood. He yelled out involuntarily, "Genius!" As Genius's body shattered, Genius's spiritual energy, which was desperately suppressing, instantly went berserk. At that moment, Morbius Sai came from beside Lin Yuan. As expected, bloodlines can't evolve endlessly. It could understand the relationship between Lin Yuan and Genius. It could be said that when it had just formed a contract with Lin Yuan, it had consumed nearly all of Lin Yuan's spiritual energy. During that period of time, it had consumed nearly all of Lin Yuan's spiritual energy. During that period of time, Genius had accompanied Lin Yuan all the way. It looked at Lin Yuan's expression and bloodshot eyes. Morbius' soul projection stretched out its hand, and reddish gold energy surged in Morbius' palm. Morbius separated a strand of energy from the palm of his hand. It lifted its hand and poured in Genius' violent spiritual energy. Genius' violent spiritual energy instantly calmed down. The calm spiritual energy condensed together, as though it was brewing something. Morbius said to Lin Yuan, "Partner, don't worry. Genius is a spiritual type Fae. This bloodline evolution has allowed Genius to transform from a spiritual type to a soul type. Be it a spiritual type or soul type, the soul is an essential existence. This trace of origin that I have separated is enough for Genius to find a way out in a desperate situation." Lin Yuan had some confidence in his heart. However, he was still worried about Genius' situation. According to Morbius, Genius evolution this time would probably turn into a life form without a physical body. He would probably become a creature without a physical body. He missed the time when Genius acted like a spoiled child in front of him. But as long as Genius could survive, everything would be fine. Furthermore, Genius's physical body state was determined by its bloodline metamorphosis. Lin Yuan suppressed the worry in his heart and asked Morbius, "Morbius, you've separated a strand of your origin. Are you going to slumber again?" Morbius shook its head in response. He smiled and said to Lin Yuan, "Don't worry. Thanks to you, partner, I became a gold fantasy breed fae. The current me will only become weaker if I separate out some of my essence. You won't let me sleep again. I'll need about 2 months to recover the source power I used this time. Of course, if you can find something to fill the hole, even if it's just a small part of it. From now on, I'll be able to freely use my origin energy. Hear that Morbius will not sleep. Lin Yuan could not help but feel a trace of joy in his heart. However, Genius and Chimy's situation made him unable to smile. Chimy had been fighting with the main phoenix species fae in its body. The main phoenix species fae bloodline in his body had already worn down his will to fight. Genius's unforeseen event made Chimy anxious. The anxious Chimy only wanted to return to Genius's side. However, Chimy had been disturbed by the noisy phoenix cry produced by the bloodline in his body. The main phoenix species bloodline was also constantly burning and eroding its sound bird bloodline. Chimy was enraged. It guided the jasmine lily's life force into its body to stabilize its body. At the same time, it took the initiative to absorb the life force to restore its sound bird bloodline. Chimy, which had always paid attention to its image, raised its claws and controlled the sound bird bloodline, and the main phoenix species bloodline to claw into a ball. It forcefully pecked a piece of flesh from the main phoenix species bloodline. It ate raw phoenix meat and drank phoenix blood. Chimy forcefully relied on the reckless energy that was born from its anxiety. It completely swallowed its main phoenix species bloodline into the sound bird bloodline. After Chimy's sound bird bloodline devoured the Yuan phoenix bloodline, there was a slight change. Previously, when he was riding on Li Xian's fey carriage, Lin Yuan realized Chimy's bloodline was against the Yuan phoenix fae that was pulling the carriage. It produced a suppressive effect. At that time, Lin Yuan wondered if it was related to the sound bird bloodline in Chimy's body. Was it related to the devouring of the Yuan phoenix bloodline? Now Chimy had devoured the main phoenix species bloodline. Lin Yuan realized that there was a pressure on Chimy's badly mutilated body. There was a kind of pressure. It was very similar to the pressure of the main phoenix species fae that Lin Yuan had felt in the Li family. However, when compared carefully, it was much stronger than the main phoenix species fae's pressure. It was as though there was a life form above the clouds. It was as though it was looking down at the fae with the main phoenix species bloodline. Lin Yuan felt that if Chimy had a chance to face the main phoenix species fae in the future, even if this main phoenix species fae was stronger than Chimy by a major grade, after Chimy released its bloodline's power, that main phoenix species fae might be scared out of its wits. Gradually, Chimy's aura calmed down. A bright light wrapped around Chimy's body. It cleansed Chimy's body. The golden light set off waves of cicada sounds. This sound seemed to see through the world's essence. Lin Yuan used this sound to listen, and seemed to hear the heart sounds of other life forms in the spirit lock spatial zone. The cicada sounds that gushed out of Chimy's body were getting stronger and stronger. Immediately after, a tail feather that was covered with sun wheels appeared. It extended out from the golden light. This tail feather was extremely wide, and it was just like a cattail leaf fan. There were layers of sun wheels on top of each other. There were a total of 99 sun wheels. Immediately after, 2 more tail feathers extended out. These 2 tail feathers were slightly longer and more slender. The tail feathers that were slightly longer were not golden in color, but a faint light blue. These 2 blue tail feathers were like 2 zither with cloud chi as the strings. As they fluttered, they emitted cloud chi notes one after another. A clear and melodious cry rang out. Chimy's body broke through the golden light. Now Chimy's body was a mix of gold and blue colors. Previously, Chimy's blue and gold colors were separated and presented 2 different states. But now Chimy's body color had perfectly blended blue and gold together. Chimy squeezed all the parts related to light and sun onto the tail feather behind it. The golden parts on its body, those sun patterns, had also turned into the shape of musical notes. These sun patterns turned into musical notes and condensed above Chimy's head. They actually slowly condensed into a 5-stringed pipa. The upper and lower parts of the pipa presented the state of sunrise and sunset. Chapter 1580. Chimy's 2 blue tail feathers fluttered in the air. They touched the lute's strings above its head. A symphony echoed. The golden musical notes transformed into birds and flew out from the lute's strings. They danced around Chimey. It felt as though 100 birds were paying homage to the ancestor. Chimey had obviously entered the final phase of its bloodline metamorphosis. As Genius' spiritual energy was being compressed, it was slowly forming a physical form. This materialized form was completely different from the arm that Genius had formed with its mental strength. Chimey's spiritual energy arm was in a translucent state. At that moment, this spiritual energy compressed into a body, but it was a real solid state. All of a sudden, this condensed spiritual energy seemed to have increased by several times and was constantly expanding. Then, a meow echoed from within the spiritual energy. A spirit cat appeared at the original location of the spiritual energy. The size of this spirit cat was twice of Genius' previous size. Its tail was actually 20 to 30 meters long. The 8 tails were spreading wildly. The tails formed by spiritual energy seemed to be able to block all external damage. Lin Yuan held his breath and looked at the evolved Genius. At that moment, Genius' eyes slowly opened. Lin Yuan and a pair of white eyes looked at each other. This pair of white eyes looked very empty, but after a closer look, it was extremely intelligent. It seemed to be able to contain all the impurities in the world. The moment Genius opened its eyes, the 8 long tails behind it clustered around Lin Yuan. Genius' enlarged body walked to Lin Yuan's side. It let out a meow and leaped into Lin Yuan's embrace. Genius' body might be twice as big as before, but it was still very harmonious in Lin Yuan's embrace. Genius' previous body was only the size of Lin Yuan's palm. If Genius was said to be a kitten before, it was still very harmonious in Lin Yuan's embrace. If Genius was said to be a kitten before, the current Genius finally felt like a cat. Lin Yuan realized that Genius, which was in his embrace, didn't have any trace of weight. Genius clearly had a clear texture to the touch, and its fur felt exactly the same as before. Genius spoke to Lin Yuan with a childish voice. Lin Yuan, I made you worry. After this evolution, if Genius could remember 3 pieces of red braised pork before, Genius should be able to remember at least 30 pieces now. After hearing Genius' words, Lin Yuan thought to himself, could it be that after this evolution, Genius' mental strength had increased by 10 times? The strength of Genius' mental strength was already very shocking. Genius was a diamond/fantasy breed. It could resist the attacks of spiritual type phase below Myth 3. Now that his spiritual energy had increased by 10 times, wouldn't it mean that a creation breed spiritual type Fae would be able to attack? Smart also had a high chance of being immune to it. After a Fae became a myth breed, its spiritual energy growth would slow down. When a myth breed Fae became a creation breed, its spiritual energy would at most increase by 2 to 3 times. With Genius's current mental strength, he was able to defeat the enemies with his current mental strength. It was enough to be called the nemesis of spiritual phase. At that moment Genius spoke. Lin Yuan, Genius was previously afraid of the mental toxin. Now Genius is not afraid anymore. Moreover, Genius's soul energy is much better now. Genius feels that if we use this mental energy to concoct the spiritual liquid, the speed would increase by at least 50%. Genius, condense your soul power. I keep having a strange feeling. It seems that by grasping this feeling, Genius will be able to enter another state when mixing the spiritual fluid. It's just that this feeling, no matter how Genius condenses its soul power, it feels very blurry. It seems like I need to comprehend something. While speaking, Genius didn't stop using its cheek to rub against Lin Yuan's cheek. Previously, Genius liked to be shy and very reserved. But this time, after experiencing life and death, Genius only wanted to stick close to Lin Yuan. Even if it was concocting the spirit fluid, it had to be by Lin Yuan's side. When Lin Yuan heard Genius' words, his heart stirred. He immediately revealed a delighted expression. Could Genius, whose bloodline had transformed again, have found the path to become a Class 5 creation master? The Moon Empress didn't tell Lin Yuan how a pinnacle Class 4 creation master could break through to become a Class 5 creation master. However, What Genius had just described was very similar to the feeling of a Class 4 creation master, breaking through to a Class 5 creation master. Lin Yuan was planning to ask his master, the Moon Empress. Mystic Moon was a pinnacle Class 4 creation master. Lin Yuan knew that Fays also had the potential to become creation masters. However, it was much harder for a Fae to become a creation master than a spirit chi professional. Out of 10,000 individuals, there might only be one person with creation master talent. Out of 100,000 individuals with creation master talent, there might only be one Class 1 creation master. For a Fae to become a creation master, it was almost as difficult as having a Class 4 creation master among humans. Genius becoming a creation master was different from Mystic Moon becoming a creation master. Genius and Mystic Moon were both spiritual type Fays. Mystic Moon relied on her innate talent, while Genius relied on its species ability. This was also the reason why all 100 Questions beasts could become creation masters. From the Moon Empress, Lin Yuan understood the situation of a Class 4 creation master evolving into a Class 5 creation master. It would allow Lin Yuan to help Genius comprehend to the greatest extent. Just as Lin Yuan was preparing to check on Genius' exclusive skill, he wanted to see what species Genius had transformed from the internet beast into. Chimy's side had another anomaly. Chimy suddenly drilled into the pipa that was formed by the golden musical notes. Then Chimy's body entered the pipa. 99 sunwheels turned into 99 suns. They converged at the pipa's neck towards the head. The final sun actually flew out of the pipa's head. Lin Yuan looked at the sun with astonishment. This sun was almost the same as the sun in the outside world. However, this sun was too weak. This sun was truly able to release sunlight. Could Chimy's bloodline have evolved and created a sun in its body? The pipa's transformation didn't end with the appearance of this sun. The pipa's strings were automatically moving. Thousands of golden birds were circling around the pipa and dancing rhythmically. Chimy had turned into a totem and was imprinted in the center of the pipa. At that moment, all the golden birds instantly rushed together in a frenzy. Finally, they used the musical notes to form the image of a golden woman. Lin Yuan looked at the image of the woman. He noticed that it was rather similar to the human form that Chimy had transformed into after eating the divine movement Bodhi fruit. If Chimy had transformed into a female servant previously, the woman that was formed by the golden musical notes was a princess. At that moment, the girl picked up the pipa and turned around. She looked at Lin Yuan and Genius with a radiant smile. However, golden tears were dripping down from the girl's eyes. When they landed on the ground, they turned into golden birds and smoke. They lingered around the girl. Chapter 1581. Smoke curled up as though it was a completely different world. It had an indescribable immortal aura. The golden bird was light and graceful, and it had the aura of a phoenix species fae. The bird crashed into the golden woman's pipa. It would produce a sound like pearls falling on a plate. At that moment, Chimy's tears seemed to be endless. Lin Yuan and Genius knew that the golden woman's image was formed by Chimy's energy. It was formed by the energy in Chimy's body. Crying was Chimy's way of expressing its emotions. Chimy's tears had caused Genius and Lin Yuan's heart to ache. At that moment Chimy spoke. "Genius, why did you explode into a flower of blood?" Chimy's sobbing voice echoed gently. Its sobbing voice was mixed with rejoice and sorrow. It might be happy that Genius had completed its bloodline metamorphosis, but the scene of Genius exploding into a flower of blood was still flashing in its mind. The scene of Genius exploding into a flower of blood was still constantly flashing in Chimy's mind. It was hard for Chimy to recover from this. This scene was similar to Genius and Chimy's bloodline metamorphosis in the Spirit Lock spatial zone a few months ago. Chimy had metamorphosed into a clear sound bird, and Genius had metamorphosed into the Internet of Everything beast. However, it was the exact opposite back then. It was Chimy that had exploded into a flower of blood. It was that time when Genius had personally witnessed Chimy exploding into a flower of blood. It was only then that Genius got rid of his usual laziness and wanted to become stronger. Now it was the opposite. It gave Chimey a feeling that it had to become stronger. Only then would it be able to protect Lin Yuan and Genius. At that moment, Chimey had matured a lot. It wasn't just the star-webbed sparrow-voiced lowly goddess anymore. It had transformed into a human form and had an offline meeting with its fans. It was no longer Chimey's ultimate goal. All of its ostentatiousness was in the face of its partner's life and death. It had turned into a firm belief. Chimey had to spread its wings and no longer hide behind Lin Yuan and Genius. Instead, it would try to shelter Lin Yuan and Genius. The golden woman hugged the Pipa with her hands. Her human form had fused into the Pipa. The sun on the Pipa had also sunk into the Pipa. The inside of the Pipa had disintegrated into 99 suns. Then, a bird with a mix of blue and gold swayed its tail feathers behind it. It drilled out of the Pipa and flew towards Lin Yuan and Genius. The phantom of the Pipa also dissipated with the clouds after the bird flew out. Chimey landed in Lin Yuan's embrace and sat on its clever little head. Fortunately, Genius's mental power condensed body was sturdy enough. Otherwise, when Chimey's voice fell, it might even fall into Genius' body. Lin Yuan reached out to touch the feathers on Chimey's head and couldn't help but sigh. Inin's looks were really top-notch. Among all the avian fays that Lin Yuan had seen, there were no birds. No avian fae could compare to Chimey in terms of looks. Among the 10 most beautiful fays, the 5th-ranked fae was an avian fae. Her name was hibiscus brocade crane. The hibiscus brocade crane was a crane species fae that could mobilize multiple elements. Among the crane species fae's bloodline, it was ranked in the top 3. However, no matter how he ranked it, he couldn't compare to Gray, who had evolved into a favored spirit. Gray's bloodline could no longer be considered as a crane species fae's bloodline, because in a sense, the favored spirit carried the will of heaven and earth, and couldn't be considered an ordinary fae. As for the 5th-ranked most beautiful fae, the hibiscus brocade crane, it wasn't on the same level as Chimey's appearance. In Lin Yuan's opinion, there was no other fae that could compare to Chimey. It could only be the purple sky mythical butterfly, Purple Sky. In comparison, it had to be said, the male butterfly Purple Sky was superior. Chimey was bouncing around on Genius' head. It was checking on Genius' body and wanted to see if there were any hidden injuries after Genius evolution. The shy Genius used its kitten paws to cover its eyes. Chimey is too much. How can you keep looking at Genius' tail? Lin Yuan was preparing to use Morbius True Data to check on Genius and Chimey after their bloodlines had evolved. Lin Yuan first checked on Genius. Fae name: Exceptional Fate-Knowing Beast Fae Species. Illusion Cat Species / Illusion Cat Species Fae Grade: Diamond, 10 out of 10. Fae Type: Spiritual / Soul Fae Quality. Fantasy V abilities: Frowny Face Memory Inference. When memorizing something, it can accurately remember every detail and analyze. It will organize the data and information to deduce the truth. Cat Swarm. If the host can control a feline fae and obtain its swarm, the host can obtain the elemental affinity and physique of the feline faes that swarm the host for a short period of time. Every time the feline faes are swarmed, they will be weakened for a period of time. Spiritual Expansion. Use the host's spiritual energy as the contractor's spiritual energy reserve. Even though the contractor can't casually use the spiritual expansion to increase the spiritual energy reserve, when the host receives spiritual energy damage, the host can use the spiritual expansion's spiritual energy to resist. Lord of all cats, the new ruler of all feline faes. It has created the glory of feline faes and can use spiritual energy to form a contract with other feline faes. It can control the feline fae's life and death, and it can share the feline fae's spiritual energy. Spirit Substitution. Through the interaction between different spiritual energy, the spiritual energy will undergo a change. It will consume the spiritual energy and transform it into soul spirit power. Spirit Tail Stimulation. When using soul spirit power, one tail can be consumed to double the original soul spirit power. At the same time, a portion of the body's spiritual energy can be condensed into a secondary tail as a backup. When there is no tail, the spirit tail stimulation will not be able to be used. Exclusive trait Frowny Face Tool Transformation. can turn into a tool for the contractor to use. Life-knowing tail. 1. Connected tail. According to the number of tails, life forms will be connected. The connected life forms will be able to share thoughts and be telepathic. 2. Sky connecting tail. Condense all the tails into one and think about the knowledge that one desires. By sacrificing one's spiritual energy, one can directly communicate with the world's willpower and seek answers from the world's willpower. Lin Yuan took a look. He realized that Genius's Fey name had changed from interconnected beast to sky-knowing fate beast. The Fey species had also changed from spirit cat/wisdom cat. It had become illusion cat/illusion cat. Even his skills and exclusive skills had undergone earth-shattering changes. To Lin Yuan's knowledge, the Fey world didn't have a illusion cat/illusion cat species. It was probably because of Genius's bloodline transformation, which gave rise to a new species. Genius's original normal ability was precise memory. Its elite ability was knowledge analysis. Right now, Genius normal and elite skills had obviously merged together. It had become the current normal ability, memory inference. Instant update of Beast Evolution Quotient. Please bookmark this site so that you can read it online the next time there's an update. Update. Do 5's endgame mobile version updates fastest. Chapter 1582. Lin Yuan looked at Genius's normal ability. It was a description of memory reasoning. Lin Yuan realized that memory reasoning was much more powerful than accurate memory and knowledge analysis. Previously, knowledge analysis was based on the minor details. It would make the most conjecture based on knowledge. Now, it was using data to organize information to deduce the truth. The truth represented absolute correctness. As long as Genius analyzed something, it would definitely be correct. Lin Yuan could already see it. Based on normal ability memory reasoning, Genius was able to organize large quantities of spirit fluid formulas. It could be said that Genius was the strongest information processor in the entire main world. Even the Star Web's information processing couldn't be compared to Genius. The Star Web's information processing couldn't guarantee that it was absolutely correct. As Genius normal and elite skills had been combined, Genius normal and elite skills had been combined. The elite ability's position was now empty. Genius's elite ability had become Cat Swarm. Genius's platinum ability, Smart Cat Spirit, had become Lord of all cats. Smart Cat Spirit allowed Genius to use its spiritual energy to form a contract with cat species phase. It could control the life and death of the cat species phase. It could also unilaterally share the cat species phase spiritual energy. Smart cat species phase were very rare. At present, only the 100 Questions beast was known to be common. Genius's control over the cat species phase had changed. It could control all the cat species phase. That was to say, as long as Genius thought about it, it could form a contract with all the cat species phase. Among all the phase, the cat species phase. It was a huge category. Furthermore, there were plenty of powerful feline phase. Genius's control over the cat species phase was based on its spiritual energy. Baidu. Search the bloodline metamorphosis allowed Genius's spiritual energy to increase by 10 times. That was to say, as long as Genius thought about it, it could increase the 100 Questions Beast Legion's 100 Questions Beasts by 10 times. It could increase from over 100 Questions Beasts to over 1,000. Platinum ability, Smart Cat Lord, and elite ability Cat Swarm. It was obvious that they complemented each other. When their effects complemented each other, it wasn't as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. Cat Swarm allowed Genius to control cat species phase within a short period of time. It obtained its own elemental affinity and physique to control the cat species phase. If Genius had only contracted one cat species phase with offensive capabilities, it would be a different story. Genius's strength might not increase by much. But what if Genius contracted hundreds or thousands of feline phase that were adept at combat? These feline phase had different elemental affinities. When facing different enemies, Genius could make targeted choices. He would pick the most suitable batch from the feline phase he had. A feline phase elemental affinity and physique. To restrain the enemy, everyone knew The physique of feline phase was generally stronger than that of canines. Lin Yuan was flabbergasted as he looked at Genius Elite ability, Cat Swarm, and Platinum ability, Lord of all cats. Now Genius was no longer a helpless little kitten. The two skills were unleashed simultaneously. Genius would become a powerful cat war god on the battlefield. He felt that he should be in the swamp world. Build a cat garden for Genius. Get a batch of powerful and all-round feline phase for Genius. All the outstanding talents of the various departments would be given a few. He and the 100 Questions Beast army would nurture them well. It was usually kept in the cat garden, in the swamp world. When it was time to fight, he would let Genius use the feline phase elemental affinity and physique. Genius Gold ability, spiritual expansion, didn't have any changes. It was just that the spiritual energy it contained was 10 times stronger than before. As for the Diamond ability, Spirit Tail Burst, it was still the same. It could let Genius hoard secondary tails. Genius's ability was already shocking enough for Lin Yuan. Genius's exclusive skill, Interconnection Tail, made Lin Yuan feel that Genius's bloodline was truly terrifying. Genius's original exclusive skill, Interconnection Tail, had become Life-Knowing Tail. The original Interconnection Tail's function still existed. It had become a branch ability of the Life-Knowing Tail exclusive skill. Apart from the Interconnection Tail, Genius's tail had another ability. It allowed Genius to combine all the tails together. It could connect to heaven and exhaust its spiritual energy. It could answer questions with heaven. It could use spiritual energy as a tuition fee. It could treat heaven as a teacher. As long as Genius could afford the tuition fee, heaven could teach Genius any knowledge. Such a function existed. Genius's Diamond ability, Spirit Tail Burst, could hoard secondary tails. It was very useful. When asking about some profound secrets, Genius could exhaust the secondary tail's spiritual energy. It could be treated as an additional tuition fee. There was no limit to the amount of secondary tails, and Genius could keep hoarding. Previously, Lin Yuan wanted to help Genius ask its master, the Moon Empress. How could a Pinnacle Class 4 Creation Master break through to become a Class 5 Creation Master? From the looks of it, it was no longer necessary. As long as Genius used its exclusive skill, Life-Knowing Tail, the branch of the sky connecting tail would ask heaven. Heaven would give Genius the answer. At this moment, Lin Yuan finally knew. Why was Genius named the Omnipotent Knowing Fate Beast under True Data? It could be said that as long as one had spiritual energy, it wasn't an exaggeration to say that Genius was omniscient and omnipotent. Right now, Genius was a combination of combat, defense, and support. Among all of Lin Yuan's phase apart from Morbius, Genius was definitely the strongest combat power in Lin Yuan's hands. After sensing Lin Yuan's thoughts, Morbius said softly, "Partner, Genius's bloodline has reached the limit of a life form. Genius's bloodline has reached the limit of a life form. Although, it's not impossible for Tsongming's bloodline to evolve again. But if it takes the next step, it won't be Genius's bloodline that will change. It will be Genius's life providence." This was the first time Lin Yuan had heard of life providence. Just as Lin Yuan was thinking about what a life providence was, only Morbius continued. "Speaking of the strongest, partner, Genius isn't the strongest Fae you have apart from me. Although Chimy's abilities are not as good as Smart in terms of functionality, it's still very powerful. But in terms of attack and control, Chimy is much stronger than Genius. After all, Chimy really created a sun that can emit light and heat, yet it belongs to Chimy alone. If this sun is strong enough, it can even rise into the sky and become a celestial body." Upon hearing Morbius' words, Lin Yuan was shocked. He looked at one of Genius's tails in disbelief. It was Chimy on a swing. Chimy was currently playing on the swing. While admiring his tail feathers, he felt very satisfied. He immediately used Morbius' True Data to check on Chimy. Instant update of familiar evolution quotient. Please bookmark this site so that you can read it online the next time there's an update. The mobile version of Do 5 has been updated the fastest. Chapter 1583. After probing, Lin Yuan finally knew. Why did Morbius say that? Not to mention being smart, It could not compare to Chimey in terms of combat. Lin Yuan felt that it was his Desolation Bloodline Fey Golden Wing. It could be upgraded to Diamond X/Fantasy V. It might not be comparable to Chimey. Fey name: Phoenix New Sun Sparrow Fey species. Sound Sparrow/Sound Sparrow Fey grade. Diamond 10 out of 10. Fey type: Sound/Light Fey quality. Fantasy V abilities: Frowny Face Phoenix Cry sound. Dominates the Phoenix's power. Fuse the Phoenix cry into the musical notes to form a graceful bird. The bird-shaped musical notes have a huge penetrating effect. After touching the target, the musical notes will emit a phoenix cry to deter and interfere with the target. After the musical notes in the bird are attacked or blocked, they will split into a new bird. Light of the New Sun. The inherited bloodline dominates the main phoenix species phase bloodline. The extreme main phoenix's blood and light will condense into a new sun. Under the new sun's illumination, the Fae and its abilities will be quickly charged by sunlight. When the new sun's radiance is exhausted, it can be replenished with phoenix blood and phoenix soul. Phoenix seed sound. Through refining a phoenix species phase soul into a phoenix seed and injecting it into the bird formed by the musical notes, this bird will inherit the phoenix species phase intelligence and part of its abilities. Burning the phoenix seed will increase the musical notes strength of the bird. Falling new sun. The condensed sun in the body will fall into the ground and form a domain filled with the sun's power. Before the energy in the sun domain is exhausted, the Fae will temporarily enter a state of immunity to most physical and elemental damage. Spiritual songstress. Fuses the soul into the song. By consuming the phoenix seed, the song will be given the ability to materialize into reality. The will or effects in the song can be used as an enhancement or weakening ability. The enhancement effect on allies will be treated as a blessing, while the weakening effect on enemies will be treated as a curse. Clear harp sound. Anchor an object that can release light-type energy. When controlling this object or being accepted by this object, the sound or sound-type energy can be projected onto this object. With this object as a base, the sound will spread in all directions. Exclusive characteristic Frowny Face Dual Sun Fetters. The stronger the sun you control, the stronger your ability to communicate with other suns. Based on the degree of fetters, when singing to the sun, you can borrow energy from other suns to replenish the energy consumed in your own sun. New sun body. Fuse the sun you have with your body and enter the state of the Sanskrit bird. Without changing the effects of your skills, you can swap attributes. After seeing true data, Chimey's abilities were displayed. Lin Yuan felt that even his soul was trembling. Oh my god! Is this an ability that Fae should have? Lin Yuan had seen the Mother of Bloodbath and Grey's true data. The Mother of Bloodbath and Grey were both heavenly spirits. However, Lin Yuan felt that the Mother of Bloodbath's and Grey's abilities and exclusive skills were more valuable. It simply couldn't be compared to Chimey's abilities and exclusive skills. He felt that Chimey's abilities and exclusive skills were of a higher dimension than the favored spirit. Heavenly spirits were creatures loved by the origin world, able to communicate with a certain natural phenomenon or celestial body in the origin world. However, the premise for a favored spirit to be powerful was that it was attached to something that originally existed in the origin world. However, Chimey had used its bloodline to create a sun. This was undoubtedly a kind of transcendence. Chimey was the same as genius. Chimey used to be a plume sparrow/plume bird. Now it had become a sound sparrow/sound sparrow. Chimey's sound sparrow/sound sparrow was the same as genius's illusion cat/illusion cat. They were both species that didn't exist in the origin world. Chimey and genius had also opened up a path that no living creature had taken before. Speaking of abilities and exclusive skills, Chimey's abilities and exclusive skills had changed. However, they were much bigger than genius. First, Chimey's normal ability, Broken Jade Sound, had become the current Phoenix Cry. Broken Jade Sound was to shoot a ball of sound at the target. It was a huge note with the sound of beautiful jade shattering. The sound of jade shattering had a certain degree of interference. After hitting the target, it would shatter into 10 spiral-shaped sound thorns. It had an extremely powerful penetrating ability. Now Phoenix Cry allowed Chimey to fuse the Phoenix Cry into the note. It caused the note to turn into a fluttering bird. The bird would hit the target and emit the Phoenix Cry. While the original interference effect was present, it had an additional deterrence effect. After the flying bird note was attacked, it would also split like broken jade sound. It seemed like these two abilities weren't much different. However, the normal Phoenix Cry meant that Chimey dominated the Phoenix's power. It seemed like Chimey had used its bloodline to devour the bloodline of those main Phoenix species phase. It didn't disappear. Instead, it had become a tool for Chimey. It had evolved into Chimey's ability attack. Chimey's original elite ability was light bathing. Light bathing's effect was to recover one's consumed vitality. It was a kind of self-recovery ability. Now Chimey's ability, Light of the New Sun, allowed Chimey to dominate the main Phoenix species phase bloodline. It transformed this bloodline into a new sun. After the new sun rose, it was equivalent to a long-range attack. It imposed a supply station on Chimey. The light emitted by the new sun could quickly replenish Chimey's consumption. At the same time, it had Phoenix Cry and split flying bird note. It could also be recharged by the sunlight and become endlessly multiplying. Furthermore, this sun's energy was greatly consumed. Chimey could use the Phoenix blood and Phoenix soul to replenish it. It could replenish the sun formed by light of the new sun. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan understood Chimey's elite ability, Light of the New Sun. It was the fundamental reason why Chimey could create a sun on its own. The main components of this sun were the main Phoenix species bloodlines that Chimey had devoured. Lin Yuan thought to himself, how much does Chimey hate Phoenix species phase? He wanted to develop Light of the New Sun. He wanted to make this new sun stronger and stronger. Only God knew how much Phoenix blood and soul would be used as consumables to nourish it. Lin Yuan had previously provided dragon livers for the Golden Wing. He had specially set up a faction with Long Tao that sold dragon species phase and spiritual ingredients. He wanted to raise a large number of phase with the main dragon species bloodline. Now, Lin Yuan felt that he needed to contact Li Xian. He wanted to set up another faction that raised Phoenix species phase. In the future, apart from the Golden Wing, which needed the blood of dragon species phase, Chimey also needed the blood and soul of ordinary Phoenix species phase. Chimey's silver ability, Phoenix Seed Voice Transmission, was similar to Light of the New Sun. It also needed the soul of a Phoenix species, Fae, to refine the soul into a Phoenix seed. When the Phoenix seed fused into Phoenix Cry, it would strengthen the golden bird that Phoenix Cry had transformed into. It would also obtain the Phoenix phase intelligence and part of its abilities. Chapter 1584. This made Phoenix Mingines attack the same as turning into a Phoenix species Fae. By burning the Phoenix seed, it could also enhance the power of this attack. Lin Yuan was willing to build a Fae breeding base for Chimey to nurture Phoenix species phase. In the future, Chimey could have as many Phoenix species phase souls as it wanted. Chimey could refine a large number of Phoenix seeds to enhance its combat ability. Chimey's gold ability, Sunlight Ray, had now become Falling New Sunday. Sunlight Ray was an extremely simple support ability that had a large range. It could weaken targets within the range. It could enhance the activity of plant phase within the range. Now, Falling New Sun had strengthened the amplification on its side. Chimey's original platinum ability, Nirvana Sound, had also been integrated into it. It made the sun fall and formed the sun domain. Within the domain, Chimey was immune to most physical and elemental damage. This allowed Chimey to do whatever it wanted on the battlefield, dealing damage to its opponent's face. The current platinum ability, Spirit Songstress. It was Chimey's newly awakened ability through the Sound Sparrow bloodline. It still used the method of consuming the soul seed to materialize the image in the song in reality. At the same time, it could use the will and effect in the song. Most of the songs that Chimey could sing now were ancient songs. However, Lin Yuan knew a lot of special songs. It was like the lyrics of Bloody Love Story that Lin Yuan had heard in his previous life. The more blood flows, the more sore hands, the emptier the heart, the more painful the flesh. the more vivid the feeling of being cut by 1,000 blades. The lyrics were sung by Chimey. The enemy would immediately feel the sore hands, bleeding and weakness. The heart would lose faith, and the pain of being cut by 1,000 blades. Such negative effects would be applied to the enemy. It wasn't as simple as the negative effects. It would be judged as a curse. Many purification-type abilities could remove the negative effects. However, to remove the curse, only certain phase and specific abilities could do it. Without such phase, Chimey could sing all kinds of curse songs to torture the enemy. There were also many buff-type songs. The buff-type effects of these songs would be defined as blessings. The effects of blessings and curses were the same. They were very difficult to be purified by the purification ability. Just the spiritual songstress skill allowed Chimey to have unlimited possibilities. Chimey's diamond harp sound transformation didn't change at all. It was still the same as before. Previously, Chimey's first exclusive skill, Clear Sky, was birdsong. He let the clouds disperse and summon the sun. But now, Chimey could produce a sun by itself. Therefore, the exclusive skill Clear Sky had become the current twin sun fetters. Chimey could communicate with the other suns through the new sun it gave birth to. They could even sing to the sun and borrow energy from it. Apart from the main world, every dimensional world had a sun. Chimey's exclusive skill, Twin Sun Fetters, could be used in any world. Furthermore, the sun that Chimey controlled was stronger. In that case, the ability to communicate with other suns would also become stronger. In other words, it was through the exclusive skill Twin Sun Fetters. Even without the help of the Mother of Bloodbath and Shue Shua, Chimey only relied on itself through the sun that was born in its body. He could communicate with the sun of the origin world. It was also very easy for him to use the diamond-level skill Melodious Harp. He treated the sun of the origin world as an anchor. The more he looked at the exclusive skill, Twin Sun Fetters, the more he liked Chimey's combat style. It was no different from a heavenly chosen spirit. However, Chimey did not directly communicate with the sun. Instead, it used the sun in its body. When Chimey had become a fantasy breed, it had obtained the Radiant Body exclusive skill. Now the Radiant Body exclusive skill had become the new sun body. The new sun body's introduction was very simple. It was a combination of Chimey and the sun that it produced. It would enter a state where it was not the Sanskrit sound sparrow. Lin Yuan was slightly stunned when he saw the name Sanskrit sound sparrow. Lin Yuan immediately asked Chimey to use its exclusive skill, New Sun Body. Upon receiving Lin Yuan's instruction, Chimey, which was swinging on Genius' tail, flapped its wings. Its tail feathers swayed. 99 sun wheels fused together from Chimey's tail feathers. A new sun was placed on Chimey's head. Immediately after, Chimey moved toward the new sun. When the new sun entered its body ignited with a dazzling orange-red flame. Chimey's body suddenly turned into a bird with a wingspan of 30 meters. Along with Chimey's clear cry, the golden bird that was supposed to be born. At that moment it had turned orange-red. It was burning with the same orange-red flame that was on Chimey's body. Lin Yuan understood that True Data's ability description didn't change the original ability effect. What did it mean by only changing its own attributes? Chimey entered a state where it was not the Sanskrit sound sparrow. The original Phoenix New Sun Sparrow's light and sound attributes had turned into the current fire and sound attributes. All of its abilities had also changed from the original light attribute to the fire attribute. It was considered an increase in attack ability. However, it correspondingly reduced its flexibility and range of abilities. In a battle, depending on the size of the battlefield, the choice of how to change the state could be decided according to the actual situation. When facing water-type phase, the Phoenix New Sun Sparrow wouldn't be restrained by the attribute. When facing plant-type phase, the Sanskrit sound sparrow could carry out the most effective attack. Lin Yuan looked at Chimey, which had stopped in front of him, and turned into a giant firebird. Lin Yuan said softly, "Chimey, change back." Originally, Lin Yuan would rarely use Genius and Chimey in a battle. However, during the Radiance 100 sequence selection, he was facing the Freedom Federation's Envoy Group's conspiracy. However, the Radiance 100 sequence selection this time had to face the conspiracy of the Freedom Federation's envoys. Lin Yuan could let Genius and Chimey reveal themselves. Lin Yuan had never revealed Chimey and Genius before. At any time, Genius, which had evolved into a sky-knowing destiny beast, and Chimey, which had evolved into a phoenix new sun sparrow. They were both Lin Yuan's absolute trump cards. Lin Yuan's Fey enhancement had come to an end. Unless Lin Yuan became an A-rank spirit chi professional. Otherwise, the Fey's strength wouldn't be able to have a significant increase. However, Lin Yuan had now reached the pinnacle of the Radiant Sect's younger generation. 5 Diamond X/Fantasy V Fays. They were even higher than the rest of the younger generation. However, Zhongzhe Gulang, and he, and the others had been improving. Zhongzhe Gulang, and he, and the others' bloodline of Desolation Fays. They had all grown up. Lin Yuan's bloodline of Desolation Fey, Golden Wing, wanted to grow up. It still needed at least 1 year. Next, Lin Yuan just had to wait for the Radiance 100 sequence to officially begin. At this moment, somewhere in the main world, a pair of vicissitudes of life suddenly opened on the main seat of the hall. Behind this pair of vicissitudes of life, there was a totem that looked like a copper ring. Chapter 1585. Coincidentally, the clock was in the hall. It resounded loudly. One after another, the bell rang, shaking every corner of the hall. After the bell rang, it was followed by the ticking of the hour hand. The person on the main seat stood up, turned around, and looked at the copper totem behind him. He respectfully knelt on the ground. Then he solemnly kowtowed 3 times. After a total of 3 times, the figure who knelt 3 times and kowtowed 9 times stood up and murmured, "Another era has begun. Totem God, you haven't appeared for almost 3,000 years." As he spoke, the figure slowly raised his head. On the copper totem, there was a pair of pure and wise eyes. Looking at the pure and wise eyes, the figure hurriedly lowered his head. As if he had committed a taboo, he knelt on the ground and performed the 3 kowtows and 9 kowtows. At this time, someone knocked on the dusty door. The figure returned to the main seat. With a wave of his hand, the door was opened from the inside. A man wearing black crystal armor walked in. Seeing the figure on the main seat, the man quickly knelt on one knee. He spoke. "Lord Temple Attendant, the balance of nature has once again tilted towards the east." This time, the tilt of the balance of nature broke the heartstrings that connected number 6 to the balance of nature. Number 6 spat out a few mouthfuls of blood and fainted. He is currently being treated by number 4. "Lord Temple Attendant, something that shouldn't exist in this world has appeared in the east. According to number 6's senses, this balance has tilted in just half a year. It has tilted nearly 10 times. As he spoke, the man in black crystal armor, he could clearly feel the pressure around the figure on the main seat becoming lower. A sense of killing intent came. The figure on the main seat didn't pay attention to the man in black crystal armor. Instead, after thinking for a while, he spoke. "Go to the other 3 epic sacred halls and wake up the 3 attendants. The Era Secret Assembly will begin in 15 minutes. Hearing the figure on the main seat, the man in black crystal armor's face suddenly blossomed with a devout and joyful light. "Lord, since the last time our Era Temple..." Before the man in black crystal armor could finish his sentence, he was grabbed by a root-like shadow. She slapped him hard on the mouth. The shadow of the root caused the man in black crystal armor to stumble. The moment he was slapped, the man in black crystal armor knew what was going on. He had committed a huge taboo. At that moment, the figure sitting on the main seat of the hall said in a cold voice, "Number 2, you're overstepping your boundaries. You actually dare to bring up Lord Sage? Every year, we 4 palace attendants only have 1 chance to mention Lord Sage. If Xia and Dong knew about this, don't even think about talking about Lord Saint. Then, your current life providence has already been crushed. Remember your identity. You are but a lowly servant of the epic shrine's totem god. Have you forgotten the rules after being in charge of the 2nd totem pole for so many years?" The man in the black crystal armor was the number 2 that the figure on the main seat had mentioned. At this moment, he had already conjured his life providence. He placed his fate chart on the ground. His forehead devoutly kowtowed on the life providence. It was as if he was repenting for almost saying the word sage on the tip of his tongue. After kowtowing 3 times and 9 times, his life providence was already stained with blood. The man in black armor stood up and bowed to the figure on the main seat. Then, he walked towards the 3 shrines with tightly shut doors not far away. Outside each of the main halls, there were a large number of clocks. These clocks were ticking and spinning. They were measuring different time scales. As the needle spun, it was as if one could be immersed in it. From a baby to a skeleton, it was just a thought. After a quarter of an hour, on the huge round stone table, on the altar in the center of the 4 shrines, a bonfire was lit. On the stone table, there were dense and complicated lines engraved. These lines, if one touched any one of them, the lines would evolve into densely packed totems. 4 figures shrouded in mist, sitting at the 4 corners of the stone table. The other 36 figures were in groups of 9. They knelt on the ground beside the stone table. Among them was the man in black crystal armor, who had just gone to report. Among them, a shadow filled with dense life force in the mist said, "Chiao, the 4 of us record the epic separately. When the epic bell outside your hall is rung, it should mean that winter has started to count. You have disturbed the long sleep of the 3 of us for 3 epochs. What do you want?" The figure who was sitting on the main seat of the palace replied, "Spring, I have recorded the time of the epoch correctly. However, something has happened in the east of this world. Many things that should not belong to this world have appeared in this world. We must eliminate these disharmonious existences from the world." In the mist, the figure with a bone-piercing chill said coldly, "Chiao, you can make arrangements for this kind of thing. 2,000 years ago, when this epoch began, the Xia epoch has been counted. You have taken over the mission of ruling the epoch. I should have woken up. But now you have disturbed spring. 2,000 years later, if the totem god has not woken up and the sage has not descended, how do you expect spring to not sleep and rest for another 2,000 years? The figure on the main seat just now said in a serious tone, 3,000 years ago, the tower cannon's crimson page, aureole candle page, and purplish page struck the epic bell once. This strike caused the epic bell's time to distort. Just now, I felt the undulations of the totem god's totem. After saying that, the figure who was sitting on the main seat of the main hall did not say anything else. Hearing this, the other 3 figures sitting at the stone table trembled with excitement. Their faces were filled with reverence and sincerity. Spring, who had always been the most steady, looked up at the people kneeling on the ground and ordered. Chun, who had always been the steadiest, looked up at the people kneeling on the ground and instructed, "Immediately head to the east and investigate the situation. Immediately head to the east and investigate the situation." Lin Yuan had a rare moment of leisure these few days. Lin Yuan's sacred source life form, the sacred sword-wielding queen, although there were no signs of it rising in stars. But now, as he absorbed the world crystal, Lin Yuan had a few new sword skills. Every one of these sword skills was Lin Yuan's trump card. Lin Yuan, who had just finished his lunch, was holding a few music scores. He was teaching Chimey how to sing. To Chimey, this was the happiest thing every day. Nothing was better than learning songs from Lin Yuan. Chimey, whose dream had changed, was no longer addicted to live streaming. It had been 4 days since Chimey's bloodline metamorphosis. It had not been streamed on the star web, not even once. Chapter 1586. This made the fans who waited in Enin's live streaming room on time every day anxious. When Lin Yuan taught Chimey these songs, Chimey's eyes lit up. Suddenly, he felt that he was a little mean. These lyrics were sung by Chimey and materialized through its spiritual songstress skill. The enemy will be subjected to many cruel curses and inhuman tortures. However, Lin Yuan understood one thing. That is, to be lenient to the enemy is to be cruel to oneself. Therefore, Lin Yuan did not have the slightest psychological burden. As for Genius, it had been executing its exclusive skill Sky Piercing Tail. Genius 8 tails fused together and pierced the sky. Genius did not immediately ask the heavens what was going on. Only then would he be able to walk on the path of a Class 5 creation master. He was smart but not stupid. He knew that he wanted an answer from the heavens. He had to pay a huge amount of spiritual energy. And now, Genius' mental strength had yet to be replenished. Even with the rainbow-colored fish robe, it wanted to eat 5,000 fish coats and condense a secondary tail. It would take at least a week. Before condensing the 5 secondary tails, Genius did not intend to ask heaven this question. Otherwise, if they didn't have enough spiritual energy, they wouldn't be able to use it. It needed to consume its original tail. Then his abilities would decrease. Genius knew very well that the Radiance 100 sequence selection was about to begin. Genius, who had never been able to fight for Lin Yuan, was now fighting with all its might. He wanted to showcase his skills during the Radiance 100 sequence selection. Lin Yuan had been in contact with Li Xian for the past few days. He stated his intention to establish a breeding base for Phoenix species phase. Li Xian was just like Long Tao at that time. He immediately agreed. Lin Yuan had given the Coiling Dragon Valley an opportunity. This would allow the Coiled Dragon Valley to have the opportunity to become one of the top 3 factions in the Radiance sect. Long Tao was grateful to Lin Yuan. However, Li Xian's gratitude toward Lin Yuan was no less than Long Tao's. It could be said that Lin Yuan had established Li Xian, Li Yun, and Niao Ji's position as the young family head. This allowed Li Yun Niao Ken to have the Golden Lotus Brocade plant, allowing him to develop quickly. Li Xian had been thinking about how to repay Lin Yuan. Li Xian felt that his chance had come. In the entire Radiance Federation, there wasn't a faction that specialized in selling Phoenix species phase and spiritual ingredients. Li Xian had the same idea as Long Tao back then. Once this force was established, it would immediately receive an unprecedented response from the market. The spiritual ingredients produced by Phoenix species phase were as rare as those produced by Dragon species phase. Even if you have money, if you don't have the connections, don't even think about buying it. Lin Yuan needed Phoenix blood and Phoenix soul. Furthermore, the chosen Phoenix phase ability had to be suitable for Chimey. In the end, under Li Xian's recommendation, he chose the illusory Sound Wan Phoenix, a kind of Phoenix species fae that the Dawn Cloud bird cage had specially nurtured. The illusory Sound Wan Phoenix was a rare sound-type Phoenix species fae. His ability was to release a sound that would cause people to fall into deep hallucinations. This kind of ability was not considered outstanding in battle. It could only play a supporting role. Therefore, the illusory Sound Wan Feng had never been taken seriously by Li Yin Niokang. However, compared to Chimey's ability, the illusory Sound Wan Feng was much more powerful. But it was very compatible. The illusory Sound Wan Feng's soul was refined into a Phoenix seed and integrated into Chimey's Phoenix Cry. It could strengthen Phoenix Cry's control. Of course, Chimey could not only refine the soul of one type of Phoenix species, Fae, as its Phoenix seed. Afterward, he could also choose more Phoenix species Fae's Phoenix seeds to supplement them. But at present, the illusory Sound Wan Phoenix was a type of Phoenix species Fae. It was enough for Chimey to use. Apart from preparing a Phoenix seed for Chimey, Zhang Xian's eyes lit up. Lin Yuan still had to build a cat garden in the swamp world for Genius. The cat garden's choice of feline phase was not so particular. As long as it was a feline fae with a stronger talent, it would be within Lin Yuan's choice. Lin Yuan called Listen. The Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce was now comparable to a top faction. Listen had set the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's function on luxury resources. However, the entire Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce had not abandoned its original business model. On the original foundation, it used the Chamber of Commerce's business model to expand. It harvested a lot of online and offline resources. After knowing that Lin Yuan was looking for feline phase, Listen, the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's president, personally supervised. In just 2 days, Lin Yuan had collected 500 exceptionally outstanding feline phase. However, these feline phase were all below bronze grade. This was also Lin Yuan's special request. Only by nurturing phase from a young age could Lin Yuan guarantee their strength and potential. The better the foundation of these feline phase, the stronger their potential. When genius obtained these feline phase physique and elemental affinity, through its cat swarm ability, it would be able to become stronger. Only then would it be able to become stronger. Lin Yuan finished teaching Chimey how to sing. He was originally going to enhance these feline phase. In the end, Lin Yuan's phone rang. He picked up the phone and found that it was Listen. After picking up the phone, Lin Yuan heard Listen's tongue-tied voice on the other end. Why, young master? You said that someone would use the strange water to trade heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls in the guild. This person is here, and the trade is over. It's just that this person won't leave and insists on seeing you. Young master, this person seems to be the Azure Federation's Azure envoy. What should we do? Yin Lin was currently in the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. She was abnormally nervous and expectant. Just like when Yin Lin was looking forward to being able to see this world clearly. However, the more she looked forward to it, the more apprehensive Yin Lin felt. Yin Lin imagined the person in the starry sky with thousands of laws and willpower entwined around him. What would it be like in reality? However, Yin Lin still had a sense of propriety. No matter how anxious she was, she did not immediately go to the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce after arriving at the Radiance Federation. Instead, she secretly ran out alone after visiting the Radiance Federation's Lord in the Azure Federation. Upon hearing Listen's words, Lin Yuan spoke. Tell her about this. Let her wait for me there. I'll be there in a while. Lin Yuan had already made an agreement with Yin Lin in the Celestial Council, the source-type cocoon demon embryo that Yin Lin had mentioned. Lin Yuan had been thinking about the source-type cocoon demon embryo. To others, it was a disaster and regarded as an ominous thing. But for Lu Jie, the cocoon demon embryo was definitely something that could change his fate. With the source-type cocoon demon embryo, Lu Jie's fate combination no longer had any shortcomings. This time, Lin Yuan did not intend to use colorless paper ability to meet Yin Lin. He planned to meet Yin Lin openly, as the Radiance Federation's Lord's disciple. The Freedom Federation's envoys would look for the Azure Federation's envoys to cooperate. The Radiance Federation's side could naturally look for the Azure Federation's envoys to cooperate. During this Radiance 100 sequence selection, the Freedom Federation's envoys would either not cause trouble. Otherwise, Lin Yuan would kill them without mercy. Chapter 1587. Lin Yuan's Fey Carriage. Huquan had finished forging it a long time ago. However, there had never been a suitable Fey to pull the carriage. Only then would it work. It was a Fey carriage made of completely jade-textured wood. He had never been able to put it to use. The Moon Empress gave Lin Yuan 12 Heaven Fragrance Beauty Butterflies. When Lin Yuan saw the Imperial Armored Martial God insect, a strange insect, his eyes lit up. He decided to use the Royal Armored Martial God insects to pull the Fey carriage. Previously, at the Pinnacle Class 4-dimensional rift in the Coiling Dragon Valley, Lin Yuan had captured the Royal Armored Martial God insect. One of them was a mutated Royal Armored Martial God insect. Black steel wings appeared on his back. This time, he went to see Yin Lin as His Holiness Hui Yao's disciple. Although he didn't need to wear the Moonlight Royal robe that his master, the Moon Empress, had replicated for him, he didn't need to wear it. However, the grandeur that should be said still had to be said. Lin Yuan exited the Diamond Fey storage box. He took out the Fey carriage that he had previously forged. Then, he released the Royal Martial God insect in another Diamond Fey storage box. The Heavenly Fragrance Beauty Butterfly was controlling the Royal Armored Martial God insects. The Heavenly Fragrance Beauty Butterfly had already given the order to the Royal Armored Martial God insects. The Royal Armored Martial God insects listened to Lin Yuan's orders. He wanted these Royal Martial God insects that were like Gundams to be truly obedient. It could steadily pull a Fey carriage in the sky. Lin Yuan still had to release the Heavenly Fragrance Beauty Butterflies. Otherwise, they would be separated by a layer of space. The Heavenly Fragrance Beauty Butterflies' control over the Royal Armored Martial God insects would weaken. This mutated Imperial Armored Martial God insect clearly had a higher intelligence than the other Imperial Armored Martial God insects. However, the higher the intelligence, the harder it was to control. The Heaven Fragrance Beauty Butterfly was only a diamond fae. It was still a little difficult for him to control the Emperor Armored Martial God Insect, which was comparable to a Myth 3 fae. However, the Mindfulness Whale was here. It could help these Heavenly Fragrance Beauty Butterflies advance to Myth breed as soon as possible. At that time, he could even let the Heavenly Fragrance Beauty Butterfly. It could control an alien insect that was comparable to a creation breed fae to pull the fae carriage. In any case, the Heavenly Fragrance Beauty Butterfly had switched targets. It was as simple as drinking water. Since this one was eliminated, they could just replace the next one. 12 Heavenly Fragrance Beauty Butterflies landed on the forehead of the Royal Armored Martial God Insect. The 12 Monarch Armored Martial God Insects were under the control of the Heavenly Fragrance Beauty Butterfly. He took the initiative to put the lock of the Fae carriage on the inner armor on his back. Immediately after, the Fae carriage pulled by the 12 Steel Angels also appeared. He arrived directly above the Return from Faraway Manor. For pairs of huge black wings instantly condensed behind him. As his wings flapped, he flashed. He entered the Fae carriage. At the same time, a small red spider appeared. It also followed behind Lin Yuan and entered the Fae carriage. This little spider did not take human form. Instead, he jumped onto Lin Yuan's shoulder and said, "Let's go. Little Yuan, when you go out in the future, I will follow you. That way when I encounter danger, I can also act in time." This crimson-red spider was in its original form. At the same time, he carried out a mimicry of blood. Shueshua had sworn on the sun to become Lin Yuan's protector. He was now fulfilling his duty as a guardian. Actually, even if he was a guardian, there was also no need to guard Lin Yuan so closely. However, Lin Yuan's significance to Blood Shua, it was simply too important. In addition, it was a troubled time, and Shueshua was not at ease to let Lin Yuan go out alone. Apart from the Freedom Federation's envoy, who had reached the Radiance, there were likely people in the Tower Cannon's 8 pages. They had already infiltrated the Radiance. Whether it was the Tower Cannon or the Freedom Federation, they were all enemies with the Radiance. Lin Yuan had traveled with such a large force. He was likely to be targeted by the Tower Cannon and the Freedom Federation. If these two parties were shameless and carried out assassinations, if he followed Lin Yuan, he could also help Lin Yuan resist. Shueshua was very afraid that Lin Yuan would be in danger, because now Lin Yuan was related to whether the Jade Gui could be resurrected. Shueshua had never dared to hope that the Jade Gui could return to his side again. But now Lin Yuan had given him a chance and hope. No matter what, Shueshua did not want to give up this opportunity. Flying fays, or fey carriages, were allowed in the royal capital's sky. However, the grade of the flying fays was higher than gold. They needed to be specially registered. Fey carriages only needed to be pulled by gold and above fays. Like flying fays, they needed to be specially registered. Under normal circumstances, it was rare to use a platinum fae to pull a fae carriage. The price of a platinum fae was already extremely expensive. Nurturing it required a lot of resources. If a platinum fae was used to pull a fae carriage, at least 3 would be needed at a time. This was not the same concept as riding a platinum fae. Therefore, those who rode fae carriages were generally members of factions. However, even if they were members of the top factions, diamond fays were already the limit for those pulling fae carriages. Most of them were still using platinum fays. Therefore, Lin Yuan's fae carriage was traveling in the royal capital's sky. It was simply too dazzling. The 12 Steel Angels formed a triangular formation. 4 in a group. In the blue sky, they flapped their wings and flew. Everyone who saw this scene was shocked. Right now, it was the day when the Azure Federation's and Freedom Federation's envoys arrived at the Radiance Federation. The entire Radiance Federation's royal capital was under martial law. The spirit guards were scattered all over the royal capital. In the Radiance Federation, there was a department that specialized in managing fae carriages and flying fays. It was called the Transportation Bureau. This department had a large number of transportation bureau. They were in charge of managing daily trips and registering the fays pulling the fae carriages. At this moment, there were already transportation bureau on duty. They saw the steel angels soaring in the sky, and the fey carriages behind these steel angels. Most of the Transportation Bureau were spirit chi professionals who had contracted gold phase. This level of strength was enough to manage transportation. However, these steel angels in the sky were simply too tall and shocking. Although these Transportation Bureau did not know what these steel angels were, they could feel that these steel angels were extraordinary. However, he was able to sense how extraordinary those steel angels were. Each and every one of them had probably surpassed the limits of diamond. Even so, the Transportation Bureau's standard fey, the Airstream Falcon. They still summoned the Transportation Bureau's standard fey, the Airstream Falcon. They jumped onto the Airstream Falcon's back. They flew toward this fey carriage. The heavenly fragrance beauty butterfly could not only control alien insects, it could also use its spiritual energy to simulate the scene outside. It was now inside the fey carriage. When Lin Yuan saw the Transportation Bureau's people coming over, he immediately stopped the fey carriage. The Transportation Bureau's people came to the entrance of the fey carriage and observed these imperial armored martial god insects at close range. They thought to themselves, if these steel angels were not restraining their auras, their Airstream Falcon was probably scared out of its wits. It fell from the sky. Chapter 1588. However, even though these steel envoys were doing their best to retract their auras, they were still unable to move. But the air current falcon was still trembling. Even the traffic guard standing on the back of the Airstream Falcon was unable to stand steadily. Cheng Jiawei coughed lightly and said in a deep voice, "Has this fey vehicle been registered at the Transportation Bureau? Who's sitting in the car?" Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan opened the fey carriage's door. The moment the traffic guard saw Lin Yuan, he immediately exclaimed, "Yuan!" The traffic guard recognized Lin Yuan. It was all because of Lin Yuan's performance in the All-Star match. This traffic guard was a hardcore fan of the S tournament. Don't support any team, but every match of the S tournament was a must-watch. Even the matches related to the S tournament were not missed. When Lin Yuan saw this traffic guard, he called out his name. He nodded at the traffic guard before replying. This fey vehicle has been certified by the Transportation Bureau since it was built. It's just a fey pulling the carriage. We haven't confirmed it yet. I'm going to register now. The guard was rather excited to see Lin Yuan, but he still followed the rules and said, "Only creation masters can make a temporary registration. If you are not a creation master, you will need to register at the Transportation Bureau. Under normal circumstances, the verification of the chariot pulling phase can be done within an hour. It's just that your chariot pulling phase are stronger. I might need to do a thorough check to see if there's any possibility of him suddenly losing control." As he spoke, he guessed Lin Yuan's identity. They thought that Lin Yuan might be from a veteran faction or a top faction. Otherwise, it was impossible to use such a powerful fey to pull the carriage. On Star Web, people had been guessing Lin Yuan's identity. Cheng Jiawei felt that he should wait for him to return. Perhaps he could make a post on Star Web. He should be able to gain a lot of fans. At that moment, the traffic guard heard Lin Yuan say, "That's right. No need to trouble yourself." After saying that, Lin Yuan handed over his Creation Master crest. At first, he was surprised that Lin Yuan was so young. He was actually a Creation Master. But when he saw the moon totem on the badge, traffic guard Cheng's hand trembled, and he almost dropped his badge. Cheng Jiawei had never expected this. Lin Yuan was actually that lord's disciple, and he had even stopped the carriage of that lord's disciple. Under normal circumstances, Lin Yuan only needed to reveal his identity. He could drive the fey carriage over. Who would have thought Lin Yuan was actually so polite to her? He didn't have any arrogance at all. Cheng Chao hurriedly handed the badge back to Lin Yuan and said, "That's right. My lord, please take care." Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan bade farewell to the transportation guard. He drove the fey carriage toward the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. Lin Yuan had always deliberately concealed his identity as the Moon Empress disciple. But now, he felt that there was no need to hide it anymore. This was because the Radiance 100 sequence selection was about to begin. facing the conspiracy of the Freedom Federation. He wanted to display his full strength. He definitely had to declare his identity as the Moon Empress disciple. Lin Yuan's Fey carriage had just arrived above the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. He felt a cold aura locking onto his Fey carriage. This aura was very special. It was clearly the aura of a spirit chi professional, but it had the wildness of a Fey. With a single glance, one could tell that this aura was released by an expert with beast marks. Lin was the Azure Envoys of the Azure Federation. Even if it was a secret trip, there would definitely be experts from the Azure Federation accompanying and protecting her. She felt an aura targeting this Fey carriage. Shuo released his aura and pushed back. Just as that aura was about to collide with Shuo's aura, Lin Yuan had already jumped off the Fey carriage. Lin felt the aura fluctuations outside the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. She walked out of the listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. At a glance, she saw Lin Yuan, who was descending from the sky. The moment she saw Lin Yuan, Lin's expression suddenly froze. She stared at Lin Yuan without blinking. It was not that Lin was surprised by Lin Yuan's appearance. Many people in the Azure Federation's younger generation had awakened beast patterns. Generally, spirit chi professionals who had awakened beast patterns were not ugly. The bloodline of these spirit chi professionals was affected by the bloodline of Fays. Their facial features were close to the bewitching and exquisite of Fays. After Lin had regained her sight, she had also come into contact with such people. Even though Lin Yuan's bone structure, appearance, and temperament were very outstanding, it was not enough to make Lin lose her composure. The reason why Lin had such a reaction, it was entirely because Lin Yuan gave her a feeling that was too familiar. It was so familiar that Lin could not help but have a kind of familiarity and dependence. This feeling was similar to that in the center of the stars. His body was entwined with countless shadows of laws and willpower. The aura he emitted was exactly the same. Lin quickly stepped forward and came in front of Lin Yuan. Her eyes revealed a childlike look of attachment. She asked softly with a trembling voice, "Is it a lion?" Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan nodded at Lin. Lin Yuan realized that in terms of appearance, Lin's appearance was actually not inferior to Su Iran. It was just that Su Iran's beauty was too heroic. On the other hand, Lin's beauty was that of a scholarly young lady from a noble family. Lin Yuan nodded at Lin and said, "That's right. Yes, I am a lion. Come with me to the Fey carriage and have a talk. How about it?" Lin could be said to trust Lin Yuan wholeheartedly. There was no defense in her heart. To Lin Yuan was her savior. Lin hurriedly nodded and agreed. But Lin nodded and agreed. The expert who was secretly protecting Lin's safety could not agree. Lin was the Azure Federation's Azure Envoy. The Azure Cloud Leopard Beast pattern was very important. Before coming to Radiance, the Azure Federation had already collected information about Radiance. Lin Yuan had publicly appeared at the Nyx Assembly. Therefore, Lin Yuan's appearance had never been a secret. From the first time they saw Lin Yuan, this Azure Federation expert who was guarding Lin recognized Lin Yuan's identity as the Moon Empress disciple. This was originally the Radiance Federation's territory. In the old man's opinion, letting Lin and Lin Yuan travel together was not very safe. It wasn't safe at all. Moreover, in this carriage, there was an expert whose strength might be higher than his. The old man hurriedly stepped forward and said to Lin, "Lord Azure Envoy, according to my perception, there's something on this Fey carriage. There's another expert. It is really inappropriate for you to get on this Fey carriage." Lin glanced at the old man and said, "Uncle Lei, don't worry. Uncle Lei, don't worry. Nothing will happen. Just wait for me here. When I get off the Fey carriage, we will go back." Chapter 1589. Lin didn't give the old man a chance to continue speaking. He immediately nodded at Lin Yuan. The old man could tell that Lin and Lin Yuan knew each other. However, he noticed the way Lin was looking at Lin Yuan. The old man stood rooted to the ground. Oh my God! There was definitely something wrong with that gaze. Damn it, what was with that look? Why was there a hint of admiration? Could it be that Lady Lin was in love with this young man? It shouldn't be. Lord Lin had been blind since he was young, and had been raised in the Azure Cloud Leopard clan. He had never come into contact with the outside world. Lord Lin's eyes recovered. At the same time, he awakened the beast marks of the Azure Clouded Leopard and the spiritual speech White Lion. During this period, he did not leave the Azure Federation at all. This was Lin's first long journey to Radiance. It was impossible for Lord Lin to have any interaction with the Moon Empress disciple. Could it be that Lord Lin fell in love with the Moon Empress disciple at first sight? This goddamn pretty boy. How could she be so seductive? Lord Lin was simple-minded and had a one-sided understanding of the world. What if he had a love brain? If this brat really talked about feelings with Lady Lin? This kid was also the Moon Empress disciple. In the future, he would most likely become a Radiance envoy. Even if he did not become a Radiance envoy, he would most likely become a member of the Radiance Light Knights. Such a status was already equivalent to Lord Lin's. It should be impossible for him to marry into the Azure Federation. Doesn't that mean that Lady Lin will very likely marry to the Radiance Federation in the future? This time, Her Excellency Lin was the only Azure envoy heading to the Radiance Federation, although Lord Lan Sun was following them. However, Lord Lin was still the one who had the final say. Lin refused to cooperate with the Freedom Federation. They had offended the Freedom Federation. It would be fine if he maintained an absolutely neutral position. However, if Her Excellency Lin and the Radiance Federation were to reach an agreement, that would be equivalent to pushing the Azure Federation to the opposite side of the Freedom Federation. It was true that the Azure Federation had been on good terms with the Radiance Federation all these years. However, there was no conflict between the Azure Federation and the Freedom Federation. The world was in turmoil. The Radiance Federation and the Freedom Federation. He had already started wrestling. The Azure Federation was one of the three great federations. Any decision would affect the situation of the origin world. Every decision had to be made with extreme caution. But now Lin's thoughts were different. Could they still remain neutral? The elder felt that he should report this matter to Lord Lan Sun. However, Lin was an Azure envoy. He had the right to make any decision. The Azure Federation powerhouse's mind was in a complete mess. The more he looked at Lin Yuan, the more he disliked him. However, Lin agreed to Lin Yuan's invitation. The old man had no right to interfere. In the end, he could only bow and respond. He stared at the spiritual carriage being pulled by the royal armored martial god bugs. They landed on the ground. Lin Yuan and Lin walked in. Then the Fey carriage drove straight into the sky. Furthermore, the expert in the carriage had used his aura to envelop the carriage. This made it impossible for the old man's aura to lock onto the Fey carriage. It was even more impossible for him to find out what they were talking about. There was nothing the old man could do about it. He could only watch helplessly. Sitting in the Fey carriage, Lin said softly to Lin Yuan, "Lion, I saw your information on the way here. But I've never thought that you're a lion." In front of Lin Yuan, Lin was not restrained at all. For Lin, who had not been in contact with many people since she was born, there were very few people that could be recognized by Lin, except for her parents and the maid who had been with Lin since she was a child. So far, the only person Lin really recognized in her heart was Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan had an extraordinary meaning to Lin. The world that Lin first saw in the bright stars. It was Lin Yuan's figure that was outlined by will and laws. Lin Yuan had saved Lin and added all the colors to her world. Lin had always regarded Lin Yuan as an angel in her heart. Therefore, even if it was the first time they met, after confirming that Lin Yuan was a lion, Lin did not have the slightest sense of strangeness. Apart from kindness and joy, Lin was also very surprised. She did not expect Lin Yuan to look 1 or 2 years younger than her. But at such an age, he was able to win the championship of the Dark Knight Convention. It was enough to show Lin Yuan's talent as a spirit chi professional, and the power of a creation master's talent. Lin flipped her hand and took out a spatial equipment unique to the Azure Federation. It was a spatial die. She handed the spatial die to Lin Yuan and said, "Lion, in this spatial die, There are 6 kinds of top-notch mutant waters that I specially collected. Except for the mutant waters that were traded for the heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls in the listening heron chamber of commerce. I'm giving these to you alone. When Lin was in the Heavenly Body Council, she knew that Lin Yuan needed top-notch mutant waters. Lin happened to have them in her hands. At that moment, Lin took out these 6 top-notch mutant waters and gave them to Lin Yuan. There was no slightest purpose, nor was it to repay a favor. She simply wanted to give them to Lin Yuan. Just now on the phone, Listen said that Lin wanted to trade for those heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls. She had already given Listen 3 top-notch mutant waters. Including now, Lin had given him 6 top-notch mutant waters. Lin Yuan already had 9 top-notch mutant waters in his hands. The Azure Federation had opened a Class 6 Water World Dimensional Rift. Since the Class 6 Water World Dimensional Rift opened, it was directly controlled by the 12 5-star Azure Federation families. The Azure Federation was not like the Radiance Federation. Her Majesty personally opened the dimensional space. She killed the powerful life forms. In the water world, she created a place that could allow low-level spirit chi professionals to develop. Firstly, it was because the water world was not like the abyss world. It could allow spirit chi professionals to build a city inside, build a gathering place. Inside the water world, it was all endless seawater. Even with those like the oxygen filter sea anemone, phase that could help spirit chi professionals breathe in the water. Spirit chi professionals could not live in it. In the water world, spirit chi professionals could not sleep or rest normally. The water pressure would quickly consume the spirit chi professionals' physical strength. Therefore, after comprehensive consideration, the 12 5-star Azure Federation families, they treated the Class 6 Water World Dimensional Rift as a resource shared only by the 12 5-star Azure Federation families. Only the 12 5-star Azure Federation families would develop it. Therefore, Lin could take out so many top-notch mutant waters at once. Now she wanted to improve the quality. She needed to extract the characteristics of the mutant water. To awaken the willpower, Lin Yuan had a huge demand for top-notch mutant waters. Therefore, Lin Yuan did not refuse Lin's gift. Lin Yuan thought about it. Lin had just traded the heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls. However, there was never enough heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.